24th, 2025. This is a regular business meeting of the Billings City Council. For many of you, this is your first time in your new City Hall, so welcome. If you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have our invocation by Councilmember T.J. Rogers. I pledge allegiance. Which stands. Liberty and justice.
Heavenly Father, we come before you with gratitude for the opportunity to serve our community. We ask for your wisdom to guide our discussions, that we may make fair and thoughtful decisions for the good of all. Grant us patience to listen, clarity to discern, and courage to act with integrity. May our words and actions reflect respect, unity, and a commitment to justice. Bless our efforts tonight, and may they bring progress, peace, and prosperity to those we serve. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Denise, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Shaw, Gulick, Neese,
Here.
Owen,
Here.
Rogers,
Here.
Kennedy,
Here.
Aspenlighter,
Here.
Tidswell, Boyette,
Here.
Rupsis, Mayor Cole.
Here. First item of business, council, is our minutes from our March 10, 2024 meeting. Are there any changes, comments, or motion relating to the March 10 minutes? Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the March 10th, 2024 minutes as read.
Very good. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Ripsis. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move for a vote. If in favor of the motion, motion is for approval. Minutes from March 10, 2024, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Council courtesies, I'm going to start us off with two items. Council, first one more serious, which is the status of House Bill 231. I apologize, I was not able to be with you last Monday night. Finance Director Andy Zeller, City Administrator Chris Kukulski, and I were in Helena talking to some of our legislators. As you've seen from some of the news accounts, things are happening relating to House Bill 231. House Bill 231 is the governor's homestead or so-called homestead tax change, tax relief measure. We called to the attention, you saw my letter to the governor from last Friday about the unique problems that piece of legislation creates for Billings because of the numerical cap on our mills in our charter. By Andy's calculations, we stood to lose about $6.5 million each year, which would equate to 67 to 70 different FTEs, most of which would have to come out of public safety. So we brought that message to Helena. Everybody we spoke with understood it. We received a very cordial and understanding response. Don't know exactly what the answer to that is. They're working on proposed amendments that, in a nutshell, would potentially, by state statute, create an exception to our charter that would allow us to raise our mills, notwithstanding the language in the charter, if so elected, up to the amount of our 2025 revenue. That's a lot better than losing $6.5 million. But it would potentially put us at 2025 revenue levels with 2026 expenses. And as you know, all of our collective bargaining agreements all have inflation adjustments in them. Other expenses have gone up. So we're not, we haven't finished on that issue, but stay tuned. And there are also many other tax relief measures, and it's possible that House Bill 231 will not come out the other end of the process. We don't know. But anyway, that's a little bit of a status report there. I'd also like to just introduce, we have some special guests with us in the back from Troop 52. The Scoutmaster is Joey Anderson. Their senior patrol leader is Luke Munson. and they're hosted by the Billings Rod and Gun Club. They're here working on their citizenship and the community merit badge. So would all of the scouts just stand up so that we can acknowledge you? Thank you. We've got a great crowd. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. We won't invite them all up to introduce themselves tonight. We've got a bit of a long agenda, I think, for us. We don't, before we move on to proclamations, other courtesies this evening. Do we have some other council courtesies? Seeing none. And just a reminder, since Councilmember Kennedy is online, if you do see his hand go up, please let me know if I missed that. Oh, he's got it up. Councilmember Kennedy, please go ahead.
Mayor, on proclamations, did you receive the proclamation for the Prevention of Child Abuse Month?
I very well might have. If so, I don't have it here to read. Can you alert us, and we can also read it next week if it's not too late, or next meeting?
No, we will be having you read it on the 4th of April, and it doesn't look like our next meeting is until the 7th of April. So I had sent it over, and I'm sorry I didn't follow up on it.
Yeah, well, and our apologies. There's often the pinwheel ceremony. Councilmember Kennedy, can you give us a little bit of quick background?
Sure. April is the Prevention of Child Abuse Month. We have a pinwheel ceremony on the courthouse lawn on April 4th at 12 noon. We'll have a proclamation from the City of Billings, Mayor Cole, and from County Commissioner Mike Waters. And the proclamation will read that the month of April will be Child Abuse Prevention Month as an awareness. Every Monday, we ask people to wear blue. And then we will have a reception on the 24th of April at the Family Tree Nurturing Center. This is a statewide observance and awareness of child abuse prevention.
Very good. Thank you. Again, reminder, April 4th, County Courthouse lawn. And Councilmember Kennedy, if you'd like, we could still read it in early April since it's through the whole month. If you'd like, we'll leave that to you. Very good. Anything else in the way of council courtesies? Councilmember Owen?
Mayor, I'm not sure if this is a courtesy or where to put it anyhow, so I'm just going to put it, hopefully you'll just let me have the courtesy of saying, I think the work that, excuse me, has been done on 231 has generally been educational in nature, helping legislators understand the various impacts. I would just hope that before we take any official city positions, that there be a council vote on what those city positions are on any bills or amendments to those bills. I think a conversation at this dais would be appropriate.
Very good. And the legislative committee will be meeting this week, and that'll be a topic of their conversation. So I do encourage everybody to attend. Everyone is welcome, as well as the committee members, of course. If nothing else, we'll move on to our city administrator report. Chris, or I apologize, council reports. Do we have anything from organizations that we serve on behalf of the council? Councilmember Denise?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And Kendra, if you don't mind, I'm going to just give a quick update report on the legislative committee that met just this last week. And so we did, so we did meet regarding the tax bills. And we talked, I think you were there briefly. And so we did talk about the different possibilities and solutions. And really what the one solution, our recommendation from the committee standpoint was, don't pass to 231 and look for passing SB 90. And so that's really the preferred option from the committee standpoint. There were some backup options that we discussed, but one of the things we didn't want them to do, one of the options we didn't want the legislator going to was to remove the mill levy cap from the city charter. And so that's the committee's view that we looked at. And so just to give you an update of what the committee voiced to the administration during the meeting. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I went to my first Beartooth RC&D Resource Conservation Development meeting in Hardin. I found it interesting, and my first statement to them is, we, the city council, most of us don't know who you are. and I've invited them to come to the city council at a time we can set up to say who they are and what they do and how it affects Billings, Montana. And they said, fine.
Very good, thank you. Any other council reports? Seeing none, Chris?
Mayor and council, just a couple of items here. Is it picking it up okay? See if I can get a little closer to the mic. That working? Okay, so first up, I asked that the council make a motion to remove items 1C and 1D, even though the city believes it has contractual rights to enter subcontracts in accordance with Article 2.2 of the Teamsters Local 190 Collective Bargaining Agreement. The city is temporarily holding off on its recommendation, or administration is holding off on its recommendation to enter into the custodial contracts till it's had an additional opportunity to bargain with Teamsters to see if the parties can meet a mutual resolution to this matter. So I would ask that a motion be made removing items 1C and 1D from the agenda. Next up is a reminder that March 31st, 1 week from tonight, is a fifth Monday. We do not meet on fifth Mondays, so there will not be a meeting in this room. And then last, we do not have any ex parte communication this afternoon. That's all that I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Chris. Council will ask us to address any agenda changes at this time. Councilmember Aspenlider.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to request that we reorder the agenda tonight to move regular agenda item number 2, which is the ordinance zone changes and the housekeeping amendments to our zoning code, back to behind agenda item number 5, and scoot 3, 4, and 5 up so that we get all of these zone changes done and can get people out of here without having them have to sit through our housekeeping work.
Second.
And I'd also ask staff, to take that into consideration. When we have zone changes and consultants and applicants sitting in the room, please put our own internal housekeeping stuff at the end of those agendas, not before, so we can get people in and out of here. It costs a lot of money to have consultants sitting out in that room, and the sooner we can get them out, the sooner that bell quits ringing for the clients. So thank you.
Mayor, did you get my second?
Very good. Thank you. We have the motion. Is there a second? Councilmember Neese makes a second. You don't think they'll be titillated by our going through our red line on our housekeeping changes of the zoning code? Okay, all right.
I actually feel sorry for those Boy Scouts to have to sit through this agenda.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion that's been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Before we proceed to a vote? Okay, the motion is to move item number 2 to after item number 5. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Any other agenda changes?
Mayor,
Councilmember Kennedy.
thank you. I would like to remove item 1C and 1D, and I would like to remove them and put them on either work session April 21st or May 5th. But I would also like to add at that work session, I would like for us to look at the whole facilities department and look at the amount of dollars that we will be spending just on maintenance, and looking at the 3 supervisors for 2 people is quite a bit. So I would like to remove item 1C and 1D and also have a larger discussion on the whole facilities department as we are looking to make some cuts, especially in light of where we're going with the with property taxes.
Okay, the motion that's in order, I think, is to remove it from the agenda tonight. The rest is not really part of our agenda, but I think the city administrator who's in control of the agenda at least heard that request. We could, I suppose through an initiative process, get more specific, but the immediate thing is item 1C and 1D to be removed.
The Mayor, the
yeah.
real reason I'm bringing this up, and I want it to go forward on a work session, it seems like things get lost, and if they do not go forward, or they wait quite a bit. So I want some definite time that we bring this back and we talk about the whole facilities department and the amount of money that we spend. That's why I wanted to bring it up, and also remove it tonight and bring it over for further discussion so the public can be involved with the discussion on a study night.
Okay, thank you. If there's a second, I'll ask City Administrator if he has any concerns about the specific timing, but
Mayor, I'll second it for
it-
discussion. I have some
okay,
questions as well.
Councilmember Bernice makes the second. With that, Chris, you're the one who suggested removing the item. This is a little different. It'll put a specific time to bring it back. Do you have any problems with that?
Well, what I'm trying to pull up in front of us, so each Friday in the weekly report, it gives you what's anticipated. It's never locked in. I mean, they're drafts, but what's anticipated in upcoming agendas. So that's, I'm trying to find it here to determine, okay, if this is a higher priority, some other things may, depending on how full those are, will have to be bumped. And I guess I would prefer to leave the conversation as generic, in that we're going to be sitting down in good faith bargaining with the Teamsters. That's not a conversation to have during a public meeting. That's a private conversation with the bargaining unit. But I heard there are two separate issues there. Councilmember Kennedy asked for a better understanding of the facilities budget, and our resources management, that all of that is part of the budget presentations we've been presented with, and I have no problem sharing that with the council earlier than when you would have ordinarily seen their proposed budget.
Okay, Chris, can I make a suggestion so we don't have to go back to Councilmember Kennedy about whether the motion should be changed, et cetera? We have these two dates. It was an or in his motion. So could we leave it that we'll just go ahead and have a vote on the motion? If you determine that there's a scheduling problem, could you bring it back to especially Councilmember Kennedy, and to this body, and ask us for a change? But you should have some time to do that. But if we can just leave it then we can move ahead. So, all right, the motion is what the motion is. Is it clear before we proceed to a vote? Anybody need it restated? Councilmember Gulick.
Yeah, I guess it seems, Mayor, that we're going to have presentations by the different departments in May, I believe it is. I wonder if just that's when we we talk about facilities in terms of their plan, their budget. That seems to me like a good time to discuss that other piece then.
Okay, so you're saying there may need to be a change in the date, but again, the motion is April, I believe, 28th meeting or May 5th meeting is how it was presented. If I got those dates right. Did I get those dates right?
No, he said
No.
April.
Denise, what were the dates?
April 21st and May 5th.
April 21st or May 5th?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. April 21st or May 5th. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, the motion is to remove item 1C, aim for those two dates. City Administrator might come back if there's a scheduling issue, broaden it to look at expenditure for the whole facility department. Also was mentioned about information about the three supervisors as well. Councilmember Ripsis.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I thought you said that anything other than just taking it off the agenda was not in order. And so I thought we were limiting to just agenda changes right now.
I did. Chris said he didn't have any problem broadening, bringing us more information. So you're right. I misled you. Since this is the item that's on the agenda, I am just going to go back. What we're doing is removing it to this item tonight and setting those new dates. But hopefully Chris can work out the content and work with Councilmember Kennedy. Okay, if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Thank you very much. So that deals with that item. I'm assuming there are no other agenda changes. Okay, then we'll proceed on to public comment on non-public hearing items. So what this is if you came and you'd like to comment on anything that is on item number 1 or item number 6, which is the pedestrian and bike master plan, this will be an appropriate time for comment. If you're here for one of the other items, there will be public hearing on those later. So item 1 is the consent agenda, all of the subparts. There's a copy of the agenda back as you come in by the door if you're not sure what's on what. But this is the time for public comment on items 1 and item 6. If you would, please make a little line there. We've got a microphone here. And I just need to give you a bit of a warning, which is the microphones only pick up if your mouth is pretty close to it. So please keep your mouth close to it, speak up, and try not to move your head back and forth. Talk right into the microphone, and that'll make it a lot easier for everybody to hear, including people on Community 7 TV. With that, we'll open up public comment. Go ahead.
Mayor Cole, council members, my name is Lionel Tapia. I reside at 241 Park Hill Drive. I strongly encourage the council to vote to untable the 2024 pedestrian and bike path and move it to a future work session. There are 3 points I'd like to underscore briefly. Number 1, if projects are not identified in a locally adopted plan, then it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to secure grants for projects in the future. The grants to construct the Inner Belt Loop and the Skyline Trail would not have been successful if the Highway 3 corridor and rims to valley studies had not been completed. Number 2, I believe that it would be prudent to at least discuss a plan that is a result of a considerable amount of effort on the part of city and county planners. There are concepts that may benefit our community in the long run. And number 3, since any next steps would require separate council approval, there are no clear negatives to adopting the plan from a project or financial standpoint. That is, there's no formal commitment to building a specific project. There's no formal commitment to allocating funds for a specific project. Projects still need to be approved to move on to the CIP, and grant applications must still be approved by this council for projects. Finally, I applaud the council and that the council takes its fiduciary responsibilities seriously, and hope that in that vein it will untable this plan and discuss it further at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I didn't say, we just asked that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. You'll see the timer up there.
Mayor and council, my name is Jim Nichols, and I reside at 239 Beverly Hill Boulevard. I also encourage you to end the table on the pedestrian bike plan and move it to a future work session. Firstly, the new plan offers more flexibility to allow public works to adapt future CIP planning. Billings is growing and changing, and we need a plan that allows this flexibility. Secondly, the 2025 plan supports safe routes to school by providing connections and extra access points. There is no such direction from the 2017 plan regarding SRTS. And lastly, there was significant community support in this plan development. Phase 1 online survey respondents, when asked if they would like to have more dollars dedicated towards bicycle and pedestrian facilities, 72% agreed or strongly agreed, and only 15% disagreed or strongly disagreed. Perhaps a more extensive survey with statistical analysis could give us more clarity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Cole and members of the City Council. My name is Allie Eggert. I'm the new Executive Director for Visit Billings at 815 South 27th Street. Many of you are probably very familiar with my predecessor, Alex Tyson. She has since moved on from Visit Billings, and after 8 years in the organization, I've stepped into those very large shoes. I've emailed a few of you to meet one-on-one. If you haven't received an invitation yet, please expect one, as I'd like to get to know each of you. As for tonight, I'm here to offer a couple of quick comments in support of consent agenda item 1F, the ground lease for the Yellowstone Ice Foundation. First, we would like to thank City Council for working with our partners regarding this project. We think it's a great solution for Billings. Second, Visit Billings has committed to working closely with the Yellowstone Ice Foundation to ensure the success of this new ice facility, creating meaningful benefits for both residents and local businesses. Our sports tourism team will play an active role in promoting the venue, attracting tournaments and events, and the facility represents a new avenue for economic impact, opening the door for a new segment of sports tourism to our community. Thank you for your consideration, and we encourage your support of the ground lease for the Yellowstone Ice Foundation.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katie Harrison, and I wasn't clear actually if public comment on non-agenda items was moved up as well or not. I didn't understand, or if that's later in the meeting. I wasn't clear on that.
That'll be at the end of the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Cole and City Council. My name is Parker Phipps, and I'm here on behalf of the Yellowstone Ice Foundation for the ground lease. I'd like to thank city staff for their efforts on working with Yellowstone Ice Foundation to get the ground lease ready for City Council. Yellowstone Ice Foundation fully supports this ground lease as written. Yellowstone Ice Foundation and city staff have passed numerous edits back and forth to get to this point. Yellowstone Ice Foundation, we didn't get everything we wanted, but ultimately we feel that this lease is fair and will allow Yellowstone Ice Foundation to operate the best twin sheet ice facility in the state. Yellowstone Ice Foundation plans to break ground in 3 weeks and begin construction. Yellowstone Ice Foundation has ordered our steel building and scheduled foundation contractors to begin dirt work in mid-April. A delay in this ground lease could jeopardize that schedule, and I encourage you to approve the ground lease as written. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Parker, if this is separated later, don't go away. We may need to ask you some questions. Okay, any other, well, no, you can go away now, but don't go home and go to bed. Any other public comment on item number 1? Any other public comment? No one is coming forward? No one's coming forward. So we'll close the public comment period, the initial comment period, and move on to item number 1. This is our consent agenda. Council, are there any separations that require their own vote and discussion? Councilmember Neese.
I'll separate item number 1F.
1F, ground lease, Yellowstone Ice Foundation. Any other, Councilmember Aspenlighter, I believe you have some recusals. Councilmember Aspenlighter?
Yeah, I'll be separating item number 1Q2 and 1Q3 for purposes of recusal. My company is in the payables.
Thank you very much. Any other separations? Before we proceed to vote on the non-separated items, any other separations? Don't see any. So is there a motion relating to the items not separated? Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the consent agenda items except for 1F and 1Q, 2 and 3.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Neese. Any discussion? Councilmember Gulick, Councilmember Neese, and I have a comment. Councilmember Gulick.
Just worth noting that we have a number of donations for parks and for our library in this, and as well as the parking for city as well, for the Police Crime Center, Prevention Crime Center. So I definitely appreciate the community's support for what the city does, and appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you to those donors. Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. That's what I was going to highlight too. So again, thank you for all the donors in that. In fact, I saw in the news that they worked up at Fitz Park as well. A lot of volunteers up there. So that's really good that they're actually working on there. I would like to just highlight just something. If Gavin is from the library is here, if he can come forward. I sent you an email regarding the donations. Is Gavin here? Okay. And I was just, would like Tim to highlight maybe a couple of things because it really, the memo didn't really indicate who was being honored and what some of the funds were being utilized for. And so if Gavin can just speak to some of the programs they have for donations on the recognition and some of that stuff that you brought to light in email to me regarding how that program works and then who's we're honoring with that donation and then also some of the other donations, what that's being used for. So I think that's really important that we in the public knows and hears that someone has been memorialized in a way here with a library donation. So thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the funds that the library received came through the Friends of the Library. This is a group that is separate than the Billings Public Library Foundation. In this particular funding, over $8,000 went toward different technology for our archives, for our memory lab equipment that the public can use in the way of digitization of old photos or videos or what have you. A couple different things for that. New patron welcome bags for new library cards. The BPL Film Pass in partnership with Art House. All that came out of the 8,000. And then we also started a recognition campaign. So if you were to give monies in the memory of somebody, those monies could be earmarked for a very special project. For this one, Nancy Traeger, their donation was about $500. That money will be used in the collab to buy new equipment or another piece of equipment called a 3D toy box printer that will help lessen the holds on that device.
Thank you. I do appreciate you providing more information and some of the things that the library has to offer. And I was surprised to hear that there's 19 individuals waiting in line for those printing devices. So this will help with that quite a bit. So
yeah, and we actually have 2 in operation right now, and it's probably closer to about 28 on hold now. So when we get a third one in there, that will help out.
yeah, so that's great. And again, thanks for the donations that we're getting there to help the library. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you. Council, I'll just want to call your attention to item 1F, or I'm sorry, I apologize, 1E, purchase and sale agreement with TD Properties for Park 1, the ground level retail space. I didn't separate this because I support it and will happy to vote in favor of it. I just wanted to call to people's attention, though, that well, 2 things. One, the city had an earlier offer, but it wasn't very high. And by condoing the property, we were able to derive more money on the offer on this property, which is good. I think we just added value. It's also, by now being 2 properties, it'll be easier to be transferred in the future. And I think that'll make for a healthier downtown. My particular interest is, though, that the purchase agreement does not specifically address the issue of the possibility of building an urban dog park in the alleyway immediately on the south side of the property that comes out onto 29th Street. That's not part of any planning projects, but it is something that I've been interested in personally. We don't have the funds to do that, so we'd be very dependent upon private donations to make that happen. But the reality is we do not have any green space. I hate to say that the city of Billings doesn't own a blade of grass in the downtown central business district. We own some weeds that pop up through sidewalks, but we don't own a blade of grass, no park facilities. And even though that area would have to be artificial turf, it has the potential for being a great visual item, but also a way to take care of dogs. And if we want people to live downtown, with about 50% of people owning dogs, if we can't take care of their dogs, we can't attract people to live downtown. And it's a great way to build community. So I wish the agreement specifically dealt with that issue and getting any new buyer on board. I've mentioned it to the broker. They've raised it with them. Hopefully they won't have any objection. Does exit onto there. We might need to work an agreement for water, power, anything like that if this property ends up closing. We may need to still change the condo agreement. I think they're interested in some changes there. So just kind of giving everybody a heads up on that issue being out there. Anything else in the way of discussion on the motion to approve the non-separated items? Okay, so that is the motion. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. First separated item is item 1F, ground lease with Yellowstone Ice Foundation. Councilmember Neese, that was your separation, so traditionally we will look to you.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I've considered this, and I think that the Ice Foundation is doing a good job in utilizing this land for the public benefit. And so I like the idea that they're going to be moving there. They're going to be building a facility. They're going to invest in a lot of money. And however, this is city land, and we've done this often where we, as a city, will give a property or lease a property away for a small portion. And some of the leases do a really good job to hold these partners accountable, that they're going to make sure that they're using that land for the public interest, for the city's objectives. And I bring this up because I've heard some other, we've looked at other organizations that have some city property, and they're using the city property. And really, we have no ability as a landlord to say, listen, the lease that we presented, or the property you have and you're controlling, is not being utilized in the best interest of the public, or it's not being utilized to move forward the agenda of the city within this area when we first gave it to you. And so when we look at this lease, there's really nothing that holds the partner here accountable. Now, do I believe that they're going to build a successful ice rink and they're going to run it? Probably well, and maybe for the next 20 years. But when you look at something, you want to look at, okay, if we do something today, you don't have to deal with problems until you have a problem. And this lease doesn't address some of these problems. So and I've talked to the city attorney about this, and I think you guys saw my email going back and forth with this. One of the problems is if they don't perform what they're asking to be asked to perform, and again, this is a TIF-funded project, and so we're using this to help, TIFs are there to grow the economy. So what is this organization doing to grow the economy? We have Alberta Bear downtown. It's downtown. We put a bunch of money into that to help make downtown vibrant. If they don't do that, can the city do anything about that? Based on the lease that is there, we can't. And so when we look at this facility is it going to do what we're asking it to do? Is it going to perform and provide low-income usage for the residents of City of Billings? Is this going to be utilized, for the City of Billings, for the public, or is it going to be booked so full of tournaments and private games that the public can't get and use it? And these are the kind of things that the lease doesn't address. And here that's what this is supposed to be doing, is providing for some public use. And so the other issues I see on this is that there's no reporting requirement of this lease. And so we hear from some of the organizations that do have reporting requirements. They do a good job. And then we don't hear from other organizations because they don't have a requirement in their lease to report back to the city council of what they're doing, how things are going, what the usership is the City of Billings using it, or is it all county residents, out of county residents? We don't know if their reserves are going to be sufficient enough, because we don't require them to report these reserves to us. There's nothing in the lease that really requires any kind of reporting on this. And so, and again, my concern is that we're going to get down the road, 25 years down the road, and we're going to have this facility that is doing a lot of maybe professional services, and it's great and it's running, but then the public is just going to be locked out of it and not be able to use it. And until we have a lease that actually has some stipulations of it's going to meet, the needs of the public in the city, I think we need to make some amendments. And so I emailed the city attorney. I would make a motion to approve this, but with the following amendments. That there be required annual reports to the city council, including financial reporting, reserve report projections, booking usership reports that identify the city residents, low-income resident usage, county users versus non-county users, how the facility is impacting the area of the City of Billings, where and when I asked the city attorney, I'm not sure exactly where that should be put in the lease, but I would leave that to her to put in the lease. I'd also add the amendment that this is to be used for public benefit, and asked her where that, what kind of key findings that she pointed to, there's the 2017 Parks Plan. There's a lot of things that talk about some of those key findings in that plan that we need to reference to ensure that this facility is being used to fulfill those needs. And then the other thing we look at is, and me, always looking at the finance, and again, the glass is half full or glass empty. But when things go wrong, the glass is half empty, and actually, it's only got a little bit in the bottom. And what you look at is when an organization is having trouble, you look at how to first restore them and help them get on their feet and keep going. We don't want to just, as a city, go in there and take over. And so we need additional tools to help them along that. And so one of those tools that I recommended is, there should be an option that if this organization becomes in default for some reason, whether reserve requirements are too low and they're not able to get it, is for the city to step in and say, yeah, you're in default. We're not going to come in and close you down, but we need to have some kind of per user fees added to this. But there's nothing in the lease that allows us to have any additional tools to help them out of that default. It's just a default process, and then it's closed. And so my recommendation also is add that that additional amendment to allow the city in a default case to bring additional tools like this in there to help them succeed. So that's my motion. I know it's long, and I'll try to pare it down if you need to.
Okay. The motion then is for approval on the condition of these three amendments being added. My understanding is the description of the amendments was not specific language per se, but more conceptual.
That is correct.
Okay. Is there for those three things, is there a second? Seeing no second, motion dies for lack of a second. We have nothing before us, so Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. I move to approve consent agenda item 1F.
Motion to approve, Councilmember Shaw, second by Councilmember Aspenleiter. Would either of you like to speak to your motion or second? No, Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Since the issue was brought up, our city attorney, do you have an opinion on those three items that Councilmember Neese proposed? That maybe we shouldn't, in retrospect?
Councilmember Boyette, it's my opinion that the lease does address the concerns that Councilmember Neese has set forth. As a matter of fact, we have Chris Johnson, who has assisted us with drafting this lease. He's on Zoom, and I think that he may be able to provide Councilmember Neese with some assurances if he's has been promoted to panelist, so can actually speak with council. Yeah.
Is that what you would like, Gina?
Yes, I think he's prepared to address some of these issues, I think, which would be helpful for
Okay,
council.
Councilmember Boyette, if that's what you would like. Okay, and Gina, would you just again introduce our speaker?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Chris Johnson from Mordenthane in Missoula has extensive experience in these matters, and the city retained him to assist in drafting this very complicated and complex lease agreement because of his background and knowledge. So I think that he would be the best person to address council on these issues.
Okay, very good. We'll turn it over to Chris. Welcome to Billings, kind of, Chris.
Thank you. I grew up in Billings, so it's, not too foreign. The lease does address that, as Gina suggests, certainly not to the level of detail that council member Neese has suggested, and there's maybe nothing wrong with what he suggests. The thing that's an unknown for me, and I think Yellowstone Ice has responded, I don't know what they're going to be capable of as far as providing those sort of records, and it's just an unknown. It suggests that maybe some of the stuff that's requested may be beyond the sophistication of their own bookkeeping or accounting, but as ideas, there's nothing wrong with them. But again, the big unknown from our end of it, or my end of it, is Yellowstone Heights' ability to comply with that, given their circumstances and the level of their operation. A lot of the things that he requests accounting for are called for in the agreement, but he's not wrong that we don't have specific remedies for specific violations of if they didn't provide that material or they didn't have that information. A remedy such as the proposed per use fee tool are definitely not in there. That's a specific remedy for a specific potential harm. But it is addressed, and they are required to make their records open. It's kind of set up where the burden's a little bit on the city to go ask to look at those records versus the tenant automatically providing them. So that's the basic setup of it. I think the statement of community purposes in the lease is fairly strong, but you know, there's nothing given time. There's nothing in this instrument that couldn't be improved. I mean, I do a fair amount of this stuff, and every pass through these things and every bit of input from some other interested party helps them and gets them into be a better document. But at some point, you just gotta be done.
Very good.
And apparently has the need to be done.
Okay, thank you, Chris. That was just informational. It's not part of our existing motion. So if you're good, Councilmember Boyette, we'll move on. Other council members, Councilmember Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I will obviously support this motion. I think this is a tremendous project that brings a huge asset to the community. But I just wanted to kind of express sort of on the record that it's this kind of conversation that really is part of the impetus behind the initiative that I proposed earlier, which is we need to think about how we manage these major projects of community significance with a little bit more intentionality. The point of approving the lease is not, we shouldn't negotiate contracts from the dais. We should have, at the kickoff of this, before the RFP was issued, before anything, said, what do we want? What do we want for public interest? What are we designing to? I continue to be concerned. I see it mentioned in the lease here that we're guaranteeing a 300 spot minimum. I think there's an effort in the master plan process to do more, but I'm very concerned that among the 11 of us up here, adequate parking has 14 different definitions. And we should have done our work as council to agree to some of those core principles at the outset, rather than trying to build them into a lease now or fix a master plan after it's been delivered to us. I really think this is incumbent upon the way we approach major community impacting efforts. And it's why I brought the initiative. So I'm excited to support this tonight. I think this is going to be a tremendous project for our community, but I would just put the context of this is why I think we need to start having critical conversations about goals and objectives earlier in a project management process. So just wanted to share those thoughts on the record.
Very good. Thank you. Other comments on the motion? Councilmember Bernice.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Owen on this, and this is the reason I brought this up, is because I think these are the type of things we need to see in the leases that are come to the city for us before on the night that we're supposed to be approving, and we're trying to make amendments to change them. I don't like bringing amendments at the night of the approval to say, this is what we're going to have to do. And so I will support this because I think this is going to be a good project. I will support this motion, but I believe that we do need to make sure the future leases that come to the city, that we are making sure that we have in place ways that we can step in if our partner is not doing what the city expects them to do. And so I hope that the future leases that come to us, we have time to work on them beforehand, before they're come to us, and when they may not provide what the city needs in 10, 15, 25 years from now. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments? I'll just comment. I certainly support this. Appreciate the comments. I'll just point out for council, section 8.2 is where the requirement for access by low-income Billings residents is set out, but that does require a subsequent writing. And so as part of that, I think that would be a place where we could include some sort of a reporting requirement to keep track of that. So that will be an opportunity that we'll come back to that's already part of the existing agreement. I agree, in a perfect world, we would be able to have a lot more detail earlier. But the reality is this is still an extremely detailed agreement. 27 pages worked out with a lot of detail on the far end of the spectrum, actually, for what we've done in the past. So there's probably more detail here than we ever had in any other similar agreement. So I'd say we're making good progress there. But a lot of it comes down to the golden rule that we've tried to follow here. He who has the gold makes the rule. And in this case, because of the generosity of Signal Peak and other donors, we're a junior partner in this. Make no mistake about it. We're making some land available. We're making some parking available. But the vast millions of dollars, currently estimated about $12 million, are private funds. And if we want to be in total control, all we have to do is come up with $12 million on the next project. So those are sort of the costs of this process. But all in all, it's very good. It's very exciting for our community going ahead. Any other comments before we proceed to a vote on item 1F? Seeing none, the motion is for approval of the ground lease as drafted. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
No.
If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to the items 1Q2 and or 3. Is there a motion? Councilmember Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve items 1, Q, 2, and 3.
Second.
If items Q2 and 3, right? Was there? Okay, yeah. So second by Councilmember Neese. Any discussion? Okay, if in favor of the motion, approval item 1, Q2 and 3, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously, with the exception of Councilmember Asselmeyer, who did not vote because he recused himself. We'll move on then to our regular agenda. Item number 2, of course, has been moved. So our next item up, and I'll refer to them according to their number on our existing agenda. Item number 3. Before we do, Councilmember Asselmeyer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be recusing myself from agenda item number 3 as my company is the agent for the applicant.
Very good. Thank you. Denise, would you read item number 3?
Public hearing and first reading ordinance for zone change 1062, generally located at the southwest corner of Sierra Grande Boulevard and High Sierra Boulevard. Zoning Commission recommends approval and adoption of the 10 review criteria.
Very good. Thank you. Our presenter tonight is Tate Johnson. Tate, welcome.
Hi. Let me share the screen.
And I don't know whether you've had an opportunity to introduce yourself to the whole council. If not, you should please do that.
Oh. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. Hello, my name is Tate Johnson. I am a Planner 1 with the Planning Division. Tonight we will be having Zone Change 1062. So this is for Missions United, which is generally located at Sierra Grande Boulevard and High Sierra Boulevard. So this zone change will be a public 2, which is public, civic, and institutional, to the public 3, medical campus zoning. The owner of the parcels is the Mission United, and Taylor Kasperick from Performance Engineering is the agent. So here we have kind of an overview of the 2 zones. So that existing P2 zoning currently limits the number of principal structures to 2, while the P3 zoning allows for any number of principal structures. The P3 zone also allows for more hospitality and medical uses than the P2 zoning, and the proposed use of a senior living campus is allowed in the P3 zoning. So here you can see the subject parcel. It is currently zoned P2 and is to the west is also P2. We have the, to the east, to the west, we have the Atonement Lutheran Church. That's on that parcel with the P2 label. To the south, we have Harvest Church, as well as to the southeast, Skyview High School. To the east is single-family homes, which are N3 in the High Sierra subdivision, as well as to the north are those single-family homes in the High Sierra subdivision. And then farther out to the west is P1 public zoning. Here you can see the zoning exhibit provided by the agent. Just kind of breaks down, there are 3 separate parcels we're talking about that will be transitioning to the P3 zoning. So here you can see the aerial. You can see the existing Windstone campus on one of the parcels in the zone change area, as well as the Atonement Lutheran Church to the west. We have the High Sierra Dog Park kind of to the southwest, as well as directly west is the Harvest Church, and to the southeast is Skyview High School. And then kind of again to the north and to the east, you will have single family residences in the High Sierra subdivision. So here is the proposed development plan provided by the agent. You can see that it will include 5 different buildings, 4 of which will be 4plexes and 1 will be a 12plex for a total of 28 units. It will also include a clubhouse. So as the demand for senior facilities is growing in the city, this development is aimed to accommodate the increasing number of residents while maintaining accessibility to the new development. It also will include the completion of Siesta Avenue on the south of that example. And then in July of 2006, the entirety of Lot 1 was approved through the special review process to allow a church and a senior retirement complex. The original plan did include 8 additional multi-unit buildings. So the Zoning Commission recommends approval of this zone change. It meets the growth policy of 2016 and the infill development policy of 2011. So the proposed development has access to existing water and sewer lines, which will require no additional city infrastructure for this project. By utilizing these underdeveloped parcels, it minimizes cost for the city while also addressing cost of service concerns. It also promotes the strong neighborhoods aspect of the growth policy by allowing the expansion of an existing senior living campus. It will provide diverse housing options for older residents while maintaining compatibility with existing development. It also supports the home base element of the growth policy by providing housing options for aging populations in a familiar and established area. So here you can see the subject property looking south from Sierra Grande Boulevard. You can see in the background is the existing St. John's United campus. Here is looking northeast from Sierra Grande Boulevard. Here is looking west from Sierra Grande, and that again is the existing St. John's campus in the background. Here's looking northeast from Sierra Grande, so you'll have those single family residences in the High Sierra subdivision. Here's looking northwest, again, single family residences. And that concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Very good, thank you. Tate, before we open it up for questions, do you know if the applicant or the applicant's agent wanted to make any comments? And then we'll open up for questions for both, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Performance Engineering. We're the agent for Missions United, who is the owner for this proposed zone change. Appreciate Tate's presentation on this. Essentially, the proposed zone change would be going from P2, which is a smaller density public zone district, to P3, with the intent being that they would be building additional housing units for their existing senior living facility. The expansion of their facility with what they're planning to accomplish would be in excess of the allowed 2 units per lot, in which case that's why we're moving to P3, which allows 3 buildings per lot. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the owner's CEO is also here, Mr. David Trost, for any questions. So.
Okay, very good. Council, do you have questions either for Tate or for Taylor or for David? Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I know this is just a zone change allowing P3, but do you know what the height maximum P3 allows on that property?
Yeah, so it actually varies by, and planning can confirm, but it actually varies by distance away that you are from the property line. So the further away you are from the property line, the higher you could go. But it varies based on distance away from the
Do
property
you know
line.
what the plan is for what height buildings they plan?
They're still selecting buildings. The owner can weigh in on that, but I believe the highest building would be 3 stories.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Any other questions for Taylor Tate or David? Councilmember Boyette.
Yes, I'd like to see Mr. Frost. Can you just tell us how this will benefit St. John's United, and does the area need another facility like this?
Mr. Mayor, council folks, Chris Kukulski. My name is David Trost. I am the CEO of St. John's United, the management agent for Missions United, owned by Intermountain Health and St. John's United. As to the question, Mr. Boyette, about the public use of the expansion, currently Windstone in the Heights has a waiting list of 70 individuals, of which about 30 of those are desiring senior living amenities that are more in a residential style as opposed to an apartment style of living. And so this project will aim to serve that need and that desire. Yep.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Nice.
Mayor, I think the lot plans showed a single family home on the corner there of that block. And I'm just wondering what the plan is to ensure that they're not overbuilt there like we've seen in other areas where they're not putting a big building in their backyard. It's 3 stories.
So there are required buffer yards. The proposed development will have to meet all zoning regulations. So there will be a buffer yard between that property and the new proposed development.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions before we open up our public hearing? Okay, I don't see any other questions. You can pose them after our public hearing if something occurs to you. But this is a public hearing, opportunity for the public to be heard on item number 3. Please feel free to come use the, do we care which microphone? No, it doesn't matter. So whichever microphone fits your purposes, just ask that you keep your mouth fairly close, a couple fingers away from the end of the microphone, and keep your comments to 3 minutes and tell us your name and address. Is there any public comment on item number 3, zone change 1062? Any public comment on this item? This is a public hearing. Before I close the public hearing, no one is standing up, no one's coming forward, so we will close the public hearing on item 1062. Back to council. Councilmember Owen.
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve first reading ordinance for zone change 1062 and adopt the findings of the 10 review criteria as recommended by the Zoning Commission.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Nice. Either like to speak to your motion or second.
Yeah, just very briefly. I think this is a great project. Very happy to see more diversity of housing options, particularly as many Heights folks look to age in place and be able to still spend time with their families and in their familiar neighborhoods. Just can't ever miss an opportunity to urgently please staff. We have to find a way to address traffic safety issues at the corner of Wicks, Glen Eagles, and Fanton. Not this project's problem to solve, but I saw the mention in the staff memo, and it's a very complicated area because of the traffic patterns in that area. We have to find a way to address it, but very enthusiastic about this project.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Nice, did you have any comment?
Ditto.
Very good. Any other comment on the motion? Oh, thank you.
Councilmember
Kennedy. Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
I would just like to say this is a great project. We're going to see more and more of the senior facilities wanting to expand to be able to help seniors in our community. We're getting grayer, and this is a perfect opportunity for us to help more and more seniors as they're looking for their living and moving on from a home into a nursing home facility. So great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. The motion is for approval of item 3, consistent with the staff recommendation. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That concludes item number 3. We'll move to the next item, number 4. Denise, would you read item number 4?
Public hearing and first reading ordinance for zone change 1063, generally located on King Avenue West and 46th Street West. Zoning Commission recommends approval and adoption of the 10 review criteria.
Thank you. Before our staff presentation, Councilmember Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to continue my timeout tonight. I'll be recusing myself from agenda item number 4 as well. My company is representing as the agent for the applicant.
Very good. Thank you. Nicole, zoning coordinator, back to you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You really have to get very close to this microphone.
You.
Maybe we should have some wipes up here for between speakers. This is zone change 1063 for the 4500 block of King Avenue West, currently zoned NX3 or mixed residential 3. The proposed zoning is to downzone this to NX1 for the street frontage on King Avenue West, and then the remainder of this parcel to N2. The owner intends to not build 5 or more unit buildings on the property. He believes his market has moved into smaller 2-unit dwellings that could be owned by separate owners and are single level living, although not clearly restricted to 55 and older. He's finding that that market is opening up. So the difference essentially between NX3 and NX2 is in NX3 you have to start with a 5-unit building. You can go up to 4 stories. You have build-to zones to the front and to the street side. You have open space requirements whenever you're building 3 or more acres in an NX3. That won't change for the NX1 development, but the NX1 proposed area is less than 3 acres. The off-street parking for an NX3 is 1 per dwelling unit. In the proposed zoning, it is 2 for each dwelling unit. And that can be easily met with the site plan I have seen. Of course, their accessory buildings are allowed and accessory uses are allowed, as in all neighborhood residential districts. In the NX1, you're allowed 1 to 4 unit buildings. In the N2, you're allowed 1 or 2 unit buildings. Both have similar requirements for build-to zones, street side zoning to build to as well. So there's really, the essential difference is where you start in a building. So you can start with 1 unit buildings, and you could go to 2 unit buildings or up to 4. Here's the subject property and the surrounding zoning. The NX3 zoning will stay in place for the existing apartment buildings that are already built. The Western Sky planned development to the west has a mixture of zones, including the archived neighborhood commercial, community commercial, residential multifamily restricted, and the residential manufactured home zoning. So the adjacent zoning here is the neighborhood commercial zoning. That, because it's a planned development, we have to keep those districts as is, and we refer to them only for planned developments. To the north, across the street, is the Lenhart Square PD, and that parcel just to the north is the mixed-use zone for that planned development. It can allow up to 80-foot buildings. They can be mixed-use, they can be residential, and there are specific requirements for parking and for open space in that planned development zone. To the northwest is the ridgeline development, which has NX2 as well as corridor mixed use 1, and then NX2 along 48th, and N2 zoning further north in the second phase of annexation. There's corridor mixed use 2 further to the east. That parcel is undeveloped, but it is within the city limits. Here is the zoning exhibit that was submitted with the application and presented at the pre-application neighborhood meeting. So it shows that proposed NX1 zoning along the King Avenue West frontage, as well as down South 46th Street West for a certain distance, and then the remainder of the parcel at 7.2 acres of N2 zoning. For this development, when the master site plan is approved, we'll be looking at those buffer yards that are required between the new zoning and the NX3 zoning to make sure those are in place. Here's an aerial of the property showing current development around it. The Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing on March 4th and is recommending approval to the City Council. They believe that it meets the growth policy of 2016 and the infill policy, and even the dated West End Mass neighborhood plan of 2001, because it promotes strong neighborhoods. The 1 or 2 family housing choice in this area of Billings is very few. So there's not a lot of options for people who would prefer to live in a 2-unit building. So this would provide some additional units for that choice. It also preserves the ability to have 4-unit buildings along the King Avenue West frontage, maybe not now, but incrementally in the future if those additions of units to that property are marketable. They are compatible with the adjacent NX3 zoning and the neighborhood commercial zoning and the planned development to the west. This is view south from King Avenue West, and as you can see, this was February, not the end of March, so we have plenty of snow. The subject property is to the left side of your screen. The planned development for Western Sky is to the right side of your screen. This is looking west on King Avenue West, so you can see the intersection of South 46th Street West, heading west down King Avenue. And then looking down South 46th Street West. There will be access from South 46th Street West to this parcel. There will be no direct access onto King Avenue West that doesn't exist already for this development. And then southeast across the subject property showing those adjacent NX3 apartment development. Here are the zone change review criteria. The findings of the Zoning Commission are in your staff report. And again, the zoning map, the zoning exhibit, and the aerial photograph. I'd be happy to take any of your questions.
Very good. Thank you. Questions for Nicole? Are there any questions for Nicole? Okay, if not, we will, this is a public hearing. So item number 4, zone change 1063. If anybody would like to comment, please come forward and help yourself. Oh, Taylor, should have given you an opportunity earlier. You can start off our public hearing.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thank you, Nicole, for the presentation. Nicole did a great job of presenting this. The intent of this is not normal, I would say, for zone changes in front of council as far as going down in density, but in looking at the surrounding area west of Shiloh and even just due south, east, and north of this parcel, there is already a lot of high density housing options in the area. The owner is looking to decrease the density in that just because they are seeing a big need for the 1 and 2 family dwelling units. In addition to that, the owner largely specializes in single floor housing units, which similar to the last zone change, there's an increasing need for that with the senior population in our city. So this zone change is intended to decrease the zoning, and while I understand that that's not typical, we are still reaching about a density of 8.5 units per acre, which is quite a bit higher than your single family use, but lower than the 8 to 12 plexes and 20 plexes to the north of this lot. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but appreciate your time.
Questions for Taylor? Any questions for Taylor? Taylor, I'll have you one, and I admit that this is a highly subjective premise, which is whatever the project is to the south, Hoop Dreams, I find those to be rather unattractive. Aesthetically, I hope the quality is better than it appears. All garage, lots of asphalt, and I'm sure they're just fine housing now. I worry a little bit what they look like in 20 or 30 years from now. If I just want to throw that out there in case you want to comment about whether this is going to be more of the same or whether we can expect a little higher standard of construction on the product.
I would say the owner's always trying to provide an aesthetically pleasing product. Obviously, if they're not providing a aesthetically pleasing product or whatnot, people aren't going to want to live in their units. So there's always a balance between affordability of that housing and the aesthetic or whatnot and finishes on housing. So I think the owner does everything that they can to provide a quality product while staying within tenant's price range.
And I acknowledge my comments are beyond the scope of what's actually before us. So any other questions for Nicole or Taylor? Okay, thank you. We'll proceed. This is a public hearing. So if anybody would like to comment on item number 4, this is your opportunity. Is there any public comment? This is a public hearing, item number 4. Any public comment? No one is coming forward. Before I close public comment, okay.
Councilman. My name is Paul Clark, South Avenue, 32nd Street. These improvements that you're making out in the wards farther west, where's the parks? I heard you say that aesthetic-wise, all you see is concrete and no appeal other than get off work, get here, it's dark because we don't do a time change, whatever it is. But you've got to make it more accessible to a dog, kids. Where's the parks? And we're not putting that in. I did notice the last one out in Heights for the senior citizens. Sure, we can always walk through there. Again, besides the high school, where's the parks? You've got to bring that in, especially if you're bringing in this much volume of real estate into the city. And that's what I wanted to ask is, don't forget the parks. Okay.
Very good, thank you. Any other public comment on item number 4? Any other public comment on item number 4? Okay, we'll close the public comment period. Back to council. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve first reading ordinance of zone change 1063 and adopt the findings of the 10 review criteria as recommended by the Zoning Commission.
Second. Thank you. Second by Councilmember Rupsis. Would either of you like to speak to your motion? No? Anybody on the motion? Councilmember Neese?
Yes, Mayor. I appreciate the developer making the change in this to a little bit lower density because there's been quite a bit of density out there. In fact, I was driving down Broadwater and Lewis and some of these older neighborhoods and just seeing these small little single family homes that people would buy, and they would, that was the dream of them to be home ownership. And so they would start out with this little single family home with maybe an unfinished basement, and they'd finish it themselves and just move up over time. So we need some more of that type of smaller homes that younger families can, get out of the apartments and get out of these large complexes to move into. So I appreciate you considering that and moving forward to more development like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other comments before we proceed to a vote? No other comment by members of the council, so we'll proceed to a vote. The motion is for approval. Item 4, consistent with staff recommendation. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That concludes item number 4, brings us to item number 5. This is a joint hearing and annexation. So we have the annexation, which is 5A, and the zone change, which is 5B. So Denise, would you read both 5A and 5B together?
Yes, resolution approving annexation 25-01, generally located east of Riverside Road and north of Hannon Road, Wilson Park. Staff recommends conditional approval on that item. And for item 5B, first reading ordinance for zone change 1061, located at a 14.98 acre parcel of land known as Wilson Park. Zoning Commission recommends approval and adoption of the 10 review criteria.
Thank you very much. Because this is a joint resolution and we want to give the public an opportunity to comment on either annexation or zone change, we'll have we'll have our presentation on the annexation. I'll open it up for questions. Then we'll get the presentation on item 5B, the zone change. Again, questions there. And then we'll open up for a joint public hearing on both annexation and zone change. But before we do that, Councilor Rassler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to continue my time in the penalty box, and I'll be sitting this one out as well. My company is working on the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter project. We are not the agent on this, but we are associated with the project.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll turn it over to Hunter for his presentation
Mayor?
on 5A. Councilmember Bernice.
Yeah, excuse me, before we start discussion, I want to make sure I disclose the ex parte communication I had with both Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter and the developer on the project. Prior to that, we discussed the plans. I think it's going to be similar to what we saw today as far as what the plans are. If there's anything new, I can share with it was just about their development, what the plan of the animal shelter is going to be, and some of the services they offer. And unless there's an objection from someone on the council, I expect to vote on this item.
Very good. Thank you for that. Hunter.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight we have annexation petition number 2501 and zone change 1061. This is a somewhat of a rarity in that this is property that is owned by the city of Billings already, but it is outside of the city limits. So this action is being done in order to bring it into city limits. So regarding the interconnectedness of the items tonight, so we're going to be going over 3 separate things. So we're going to be going over the annexation petition itself. We're going to be going over the ward two. These items are going to have a joint shared public hearing, but they will need to be acted upon separately. So here is an exhibit of the area that is petitioned to be annexed in. This is a 14.99 acre piece of land, and it is generally located east of Riverside Road and north of Hannon Road. So here is the parcel relative to our limits of annexation. As you can see, it currently rests within our Zone 1 limits of annexation area. Here is a satellite vicinity map of the area requesting to be annexed. As you can see, it is a fairly large parcel given the area. It is surrounded on various sides by collection of residential, commercial, and to the north is the Western Sugar Co-op. So here is the zoning map of the parcel as it sits today. As you can see, it is, again, parkland, as I previously mentioned. Immediately to the south of it is neighborhood mixed use and N4, large lot suburban neighborhoods. Further south than that is residential manufactured home zoning. It's immediately adjacent to some light industrial zoning here in the gray. Across the street is some G3, or general commercial zoning out in the county. And then up to the north, the Western Sugar Co-op is I2 heavy industrial. So there's a mix of zoning types available in this vicinity. So here is some images we have of the site. There are more later during the zone change presentation. This is looking north on the corner of Riverside Road and Hannon Road. Looks like I clicked on something bad. Hold on. There we go. So here is looking east from the corner of Riverside Road and Hannon Road. This is looking west, so opposite of the subject property on the corner of Riverside Road and Hannon Road. And then here is looking south along the corner of Riverside Road and Hannon Road. So annexations have to generally follow 7 criteria in order to be annexed. We feel that this proposal meets the 7 criteria as follows. So number 1, the area must be located within Zone 1 or Zone 3 of the limits of annexation map. As shown before, the area is within Zone 1. Criteria number 2, that the city will be able to provide adequate city services at a cost acceptable to the city within a time period mutually agreed upon by the property owners requesting annexation and the city. City services will be provided to the annexation area as described in the subdivision improvement agreements in the YVAS minor subdivision, which is going to be heard at a later date, not at this meeting. Criteria number 3, any existing or proposed public improvements within the area to be annexed will need to meet city standards. As previously stated, those would be addressed through the subdivision improvement agreement. Condition number 4, all property owners within the area will need to sign a waiver of right to protest the creation of special improvement districts. A waiver of right to protest the creation of a special improvement district, or SID, will be included with the subdivision improvement agreement of the YVAS minor subdivision. However, since the city would be the initiator of any SIDs in the future, and it's more of a formality to have this at this juncture, and as part of the SIA in order to track it for the future. Criteria number 5, all residential property owners within the area to be annexed will need to create or join an existing park maintenance district. This does not apply as no residential land owners are part of this annexation. Criteria number 6, any residential densities planned for the development within the area will need to meet an overall average minimum density of primary dwelling units as described in the current City of Billings growth policy. Again, this does not apply as there are no residential lots within this annexation area. And then finally, criteria number 7, the proposed land use within the area to be annexed will need to be conformed to the goals of the adopted City of Billings growth policy. This annexation is done in order to help the development of the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter. And with that in mind, we feel that it meets the essential investments, the community fabric, and prosperity goals of the City of Billings growth policy. So staff's recommendation currently is that the City Council hold a public hearing on the annexation. Upon completion of the hearing, staff is recommending the city to annex the city-owned property. And I am open to answer any questions.
Very good. Do we have any questions for Hunter? And Hunter, do we have a presentation either by the developer or the developer's agent?
is going to present on the zone change, and then I will be making some comments relative to the Land Water Conservation Fund, but I don't know that we have anybody presenting on behalf of,
Okay, I just want to give them an opportunity if we did.
again,
Okay,
recognizing tonight is the annexation and zone change, sorry.
comment.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So an overview of the difference between Public 1 and Public 2. The parcel to be subject to the zone change is not the entire parcel. I'll show you an exhibit of the zone change after we go through this little presentation. So Public 1 is really intended for parks and recreation. They can be public or private. They can be golf courses or swimming pools or just natural areas for conservation purposes. It includes areas like arboretums or botanical gardens. And special review is required for any campground or RV campground that's established in a Public 1 zone. We don't have any of those yet, but they are allowed through that special review process. Uses not allowed are residential, retail, personal and business services, as well as any industrial uses. The Public 2 district, which we created in 2021 out of the general public zoning, we created 3 zones out of 1, because the previous zone was not predictable enough. So for example, our landfill used to be zoned public. Our airport was zoned public. Our cemeteries were zoned public. Churches were zoned public, as well as all of our parks. So it was highly unpredictable. So we created 2 more zones. We created Public 2 for churches and schools and civic institutional uses that would make that more predictable. So in your previous zone change 1062, you saw that that Public 2 zoning was applied to a civic institutional use, a church, and assisted living, and those are predictable uses. So that's the intent of Public 2. So rezoning a portion of this property would allow it to be used for that institutional use of an animal shelter combined with the animal control division. They will stay together. Right now they're at 1735 Monad Road, and they would be together at this new location. Part of it would be for animal control, and part of it would be for the animal shelter. Uses not allowed: retail, restaurants, personal and business services, industrial uses, except for solid waste services. So that's what we zoned our landfill as Public 2. There are some special review uses, same thing, campgrounds or RV parks. Also in Public 2, healthcare, adult and child daycare, indoor and outdoor recreational facilities, cemeteries, entertainment, assembly uses are all allowed. A park is still allowed in Public 2 zoning. So it's not outlawed. It's just not usually the case in a Public 2 zone. You might have an accessory park area or walking trail in Public 2, but it's not the primary use or primary intent of that zoning. Okay. Not sure. There we go. I keep the mouse in one place. So here again is the zoning map, the current zoning of P1 and the proposed zoned area for Public 2. In the northwest corner, it's across the street from general commercial zoning. It is just south of the heavy industrial zoning. It will still have Public 1 zoning to the south and to the east of the property. There would be use of the existing drive approach off of Riverside Road, as well as an additional approach to the south. when it's developed. But there would be no access going from this parcel directly south to Hannon Road. It would all access off of Riverside Road. You did receive a valid protest petition against this zone change. The valid protest area is 150 feet from the exterior boundary of the parcel to be changed. That includes 7 parcels of land. The City of Billings is one owner. The Western Sugar Cooperative is another owner. There is a private property owner to the northwest corner of Kratz Lane and Riverside Road who did not sign the petition. But we do have 4 owners directly across the street that did sign the petition. One of those owners owns 3 of those parcels, and then one owner owns 1 parcel. You need to provide a 2/3 majority vote in order to approve this zone change. With Councilmember Aspenleiter recused from voting, that would mean that 7 votes are needed to approve the zone change. You need to do that both at this first reading and at second reading. If you don't approve the zoning, and you have approved the annexation, the zoning would stay the same. It would stay Public 1 zoning. It would just be annexed to the city. Again, here's, oh, did I go backwards? Yes, sorry. Here is one parcel that signed the protest petition. It is a heavy truck repair property. The second location is a facility for Texaco. The third property is a small duplex that's directly south of the Texaco property. The fourth signer is of a residence, a single-family residence, that's just to the south and west of the subject property for zone change. Oops, darn it. This is the zoning exhibit that was submitted with the zone change. So you can see that that's 5.145 acres. That zoning change is approximately 240 feet north of the closest neighborhood zoning on Minnie Place, which is south of Hannon Road. Here is the existing Yellowstone Valley Animal Control Facility. It's 1735 Monad Road. It's located on a minor arterial. There's approximately 10,000 vehicle trips per day on this street. It is zoned Public 2. The area of that parcel is approximately 1.91 acres. So it's significantly constrained size-wise. There is not much area to expand or to improve the exterior of the property to handle more animals or outdoor activities for animals. Again, here is the proposed zoning site for this property at 441 Riverside Road. Riverside Road is a collector street, not an arterial street. It is mostly county owned and maintained. It is a 2-lane road. It has about 1,500 vehicle trips per day now. So those are the kind of the transportation and size differences between the 2 locations. The Zoning Commission did conduct its public hearing on March 4th and received testimony from the applicant's agent, YVAS director, surrounding property owners, and the staff recommendation. They are forwarding a recommendation to you of approval. They believe that it does meet the growth policy and the infill policy. City facilities such as water and sewer are directly adjacent to this parcel. There is no need to build lots of new water line or not lots of new sewer line, but it helps build out the city's infrastructure in a way that the city has already said through its annexation policy they want to grow. The P2 zoning is compatible with the P1 zoning, and the new facility will be buffered and screened from adjacent uses as required. The existing facility fits in with similar uses and provides similar access to the property. Although it is on an arterial street, it does have adjacent industrial uses. It does have adjacent park uses. Probably the major difference between these two locations is there is a neighborhood that's closer to this location than the location on Monad Road. And as stated before, the new facility is intended to include the Animal Control Division. Here is the current facility. And I think that ends my part of the presentation. Yes, it does. We'll leave you with this.
Thank
picture.
you, Nicole. Questions for Nicole? Councilor Rowan.
Mayor, I don't have any questions from Nicole, but I would like to hear from, I'm not sure what to call them, the applicant, the agent, the agent's applicant. I don't know what to call them, but I'd like to hear from them. And then I have a couple questions for them.
Okay, and I guess technically the city is the property owner.
Yeah. So I don't know what to call YVAS, but that's who I mean.
You're talking about YVAS. Okay, let's look to the actual owner, and then we'll invite if there's a representative or two from YVAS to come to the podium. So Chris, you knew you had something here too, so go ahead.
Okay, so just two critical things. Certainly one of the careful components of this is just some history relative to the fact that the way in which the city acquired this property back in the 70s, early 70s, was through a grant from Land Water Conservation Fund. And with that comes quite stringent restrictions. So I just want to make, for the record, two kind of critical points about that and then get to Councilmember Owen and any of your questions. So first, staff have confirmed in conversations with LWCF that the zone change will not impact the status of Wilson Park as an outdoor recreational property. That's critical because the use has to, in order to remain in the spirit of that grant and not ultimately have issues, it has to be used as outdoor recreational property, both P1 and P2, as you saw from the description from Nicole. We can accomplish that. Whether anything ever changes, ownership ever changes, this zone change tonight would not create a problem for us if nothing moved forward. And that's important. The second issue is that we need to be clear on the record that we are continuing to work in good faith to find a parcel to do a land exchange with in order to meet those federal standards that outdoor recreation is the primary use. So we need to meet that standard. We are continuing to work in that as a staff, as well as our folks with the animal shelter. We're pursuing a couple of separate options, so we kind of have an A and a B at this time, but neither parcel has fully completed that process. In a perfect world, we'd be here tonight saying we have completed that process and LWCF has signed off on it. We are in communication with them. They know what we're working towards. But I just want to be really clear for the record that we're continuing that process to meet that standard in good faith. So with that, happy to answer questions, whether they're at city ownership property or ultimately what we hope to see an end user here for some of this land going forward.
Okay, thank you. But so we don't get distracted, we'll ask any representative from Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter or however you want to respond. And I remember, Councilman Rowan, if you had specific questions, or you just want to give them an opportunity to tell us more about the project.
Both, please, if I could ask
Okay.
a question or two at the end.
Sure. So go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so a couple of things that we wanted to touch on.
And if you would introduce yourself.
Craig Dalton, Performance Engineering. Sorry about that. A couple of things we want to touch on is particularly to the zone change aspect of this. We worked closely with Nicole and zoning staff to look at what zoning would be most appropriate for a project like this. You know, we always talk about the use, and we're not supposed to talk about the use, right? We're talking about zoning. Several council members up here have harped me before on that we're talking about zoning. So when we were looking at that, we looked at P2 because it is the least intensive use that we could go to that would allow for the use that we're trying to achieve. It takes away a lot of the what ifs. Eventually this property is going to be deeded, hopefully, over to the Yellowstone Valley. All things go through, great. We have a new animal shelter, and it's a great asset to the community. However, you know, we know how construction goes, and money and interest rates and whatnot that could hinder that. So by going to P2, it really limits the opportunity for this property to be transferred to someplace else and then not know what could go in there. Almost any other entity would have to come back before this council to request a zone change to do anything that would be of a more intense use, such as retail or commercial, and those things. So, and then, you know, just on another note, I would like to commend the city and this council for looking for continuing efforts to look at unused or unmaintained properties and finding smart strategic partnerships to enhance our community. Similar to the one we heard earlier tonight with the ice arena, I think this is a great opportunity for the city to work together with some of these nonprofits or private entities and create great assets for our community. And I will take any questions you have. If
Very
not,
good.
I'll
And
pass it
the
over.
executive director is also here. So, Councilman Rowan, you would want to have Trinity come up? Okay.
Thank you, Council. Am I doing it right? There we go. Thank you, Councilmember Owen, Mayor Cole, rest of council. I'm always honored to be here. I have a firm belief that if I get a chance to talk in front of you, at least a little bit of good for our community. I sent you all an email today with some letters of support. I've been to a lot of these, and they can get very lengthy. So I thought maybe letters of support would be better. There is one letter of support included here that didn't make it into the email. Can I go this way? Is that okay? Yeah. Oh, I want to do like the classroom thing. So first and foremost, I just want to go over a couple of really quick reminders. So Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter is a 501c3 nonprofit that has a longstanding working relationship with the city of Billings to deliver sheltering services alongside of our animal control officers who deliver the kind of municipal services. As you've heard several times tonight, we've far outgrown the plot at the building, both in size and also in function. We have raised the standards of the shelters greatly over the last 6-10 years, and I have a lot of questions about, what is our live release rate? To be a no-kill shelter in the nation, you have to have a live release rate of 90% or above. We have a live release rate of 96% or above. So our community really does great by the gold standard for animal shelters in basically one of the most haphazard buildings it could. So, I'm prepared. I know that the community, the city of Billings, isn't looking to raise taxes. They aren't looking to, grab any of that extra funds from the reserve to build a facility. So I'm basically standing here in front of you telling you I will do the work. I will do the fundraising. I will do all the planning. I have $6 million raised so far with help of my gracious donors here. And the one thing that I just really kind of want to hammer home that I've said before, I'll say it again, we are gonna be great neighbors. I get that it's scary right now. All change is scary, but we will do everything we can to be great neighbors to this community. It is a beautiful parcel of land. When I stand on it, it just feels like it should have life, and it's never had that opportunity. And so I would like the opportunity to do so. And ever since the first public hearing to right now, all I've done is work with my team. I've got the best architects, best engineers, to respond to the comments and concerns from the residents. One of the really great things that I'm excited to present to council today is that one of the concerns that the residents have brought up is the use of a crematorium on site. And so I have found an alternative option. It is a state-of-the-art product. It's used across the nation in a lot of other facilities. It's approved for human and animal use, but I will not be doing human, to clarify. And it is called aquamation. It is a completely green function. And actually, our partners at Rocky Vista University are putting in one as well. And so it's already gone through all the processes to be vetted by our water department. So I want to address their concerns. I want to meet with them. I want them to come through the building. Most of them are animal lovers, and I love that. So we have something in common. So to update our proposal today, we are no longer planning to bring a standard crematorium system with us. We will be bringing an aquamation crematorium system with us, which will have no smoke, no odor, no pollution to the air. And I stand by that as one of the ways that we listen and adapt and respond. And we plan to continue to do so. The very last thing that I want to just put on public record, so all y'all can hold me to it, is that I think one of the big things that's been expressed by the neighbors that really kind of drove home to my heart is that we need to recognize Velma Wilson. She donated this property several years ago. Kind of looked up some history on Velma, and she has no living heirs, no known survivors. And I feel very strongly that I wouldn't be here today asking to the opportunity to serve our community if it wasn't for her generous gift. And so I am committed to creating some sort of memorial of Velma in the animal shelter to just kind of further carry that name on. I don't want it to be spoken last here today. So what questions do you have for me?
Councilor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. So Craig is absolutely right to admonish us that we are here for a zone change and annexation and not to talk about the use. But I'm of the opinion that but for the annexation and zone change, we wouldn't be able to move forward for the use. And so I want you to talk a little bit about your current capacity issues in two very specific contexts. What would it mean for us at the city if you continue, I believe you have constrained capacity, if you didn't have the capacity to do the animal control side of what you do, what that means for us as a city council to consider lack of capacity for addressing safety issues in the community. And the second is if you would talk a little bit about how capacity issues affect what I think is maybe some of the least known work that YVAS does, which is support the sheltering of unhoused individuals. When I worked in the community on the COVID quarantine and isolation and low barrier shelter, YVAS partnered to ensure that people who were seeking shelter didn't have to give up their animals. This council's been very serious about improving options for people fleeing violence, and often inability to care for pets while they are in a shelter situation is a barrier to safety. So talk a little bit for me about how capacity constraints affect us on the animal control side and affect us in addressing our unhoused populations, please.
Yes. I'm going to go backwards because I might have to ask you for a clarification on the first one. But just to kind of talk about the services that we provide to the community as far as residents, and I'm going to say that are struggling in various ways, unhoused obviously being one of them. And yes, that is a huge constraint to what we are able to provide. We currently have partnerships with Big Sky Senior Services, Adult Resource Alliances, Adult Protective Services, and the YWCA, so that we can serve those folks in our community that are potentially going to because of some other hardship at case. I'm a firm believer, and when I kind of got to the animal shelter, I realized that we could do a lot different as far as sheltering services. And that was the first thing that we tackled because, yes, there is such a constraint. We have 5 animal control officers, and compared to what other cities have, it's not very many. And so one of the really biggest roles that we play in making them successful is that we do the reunification part of it. So when an animal is lost, when someone is in a car accident and, God forbid, their dog is in their car and they need to go to the emergency hospital, all of those things, we are there for the emergency personnel, the officers, whoever it might be, to do a kind and safe handoff to us of the animal. So, if you are in an accident, I want you to go to the hospital, receive the services you need, and not wonder what happened to your pet. Another one that we see a lot is slips, trips, and falls of our elderly folks. A lot of times that happens. Emergency personnel is dispatched to the home, and they may or may not have animals in the home. They can't just leave them there. They have to take them somewhere. And that's kind of the case with all of these things, is that, yes, I'm providing sheltering services, and I think we do a really great job. A lot of my staff is in here, and I love them. So kudos to them. They work their tails off, no pun intended. I'm just not allowed to cuss in here.
And Trina, I'm just going to ask you to squeeze down your answer.
Oh, do this? What?
No, go ahead, but just be concise, please.
No, anyway, to answer the question, we do a lot. And that would be a really big and very expensive burden for the for the city to bear. Did I answer your questions at all, or like 6 others?
Very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, Council, before we go to public hearing, the Councilmember Bernice has a question?
Yeah, I had some questions for Nicole when you first asked about it.
Okay,
so.
great. Nicole?
Nicole, you mentioned a couple of things I want to ask about was the location of this as far as the access. Right now they're off of Monad, I believe, and they're going to be moving off of Riverside. So the real access to this is going to be what, downstate and King Avenue East to get to the facility? Because you said Hannon's not going to be accessible. There's not going to be a road through there?
Right. Hannon Road will not be built through. Hannon Road on the other side connects to Sugar Avenue. So the arterial accesses will be from either King Avenue East or from State Avenue. And Riverside connects those two.
Okay, is there a reason why Hannon Road won't be built through?
Primarily because it's a county right of way, and the county has no intent to build that road.
Okay,
there's no reason to.
All right, thanks. It would be nice to see that through because that'd be probably a little bit easier access for some. But then the other thing you mentioned was, I believe you said there's 1,200 car trips per day currently on Riverside, and this facility is. Do you know how many per day visits this is going to add?
I don't believe that it would trigger a traffic accessibility study. I think that the city and the county will work together to make sure that those drive approaches onto the property are safe and have good, clear vision. But it's not going to reach the number of trips per day that would trigger that traffic study. You will be seeing the subdivision come forward, and there will be further information in there about transportation and what kind of facilities are going to be built on the property and to the property.
Okay. So again, I know you don't think it's going to happen, but if it were to happen, it would trigger a traffic
to sell the property to Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter, they would be the ones who would be paying for and putting in those improvements.
Okay, so that responsibility would transfer on to them
yes.
to do that. Okay. All right, thank you very much. That's the only questions I had.
Councilor Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. In the staff report, it indicated that at one time we used this property for deposit of snow. Do we still
Yes.
do that currently?
You know, I'm the Public Works Director has a couple of different places where they deposit snow. This was used, I think, in 2014, 2015 for that because they were piling it in Almond Park parking lot and they were having difficulty getting that snow to melt. They had a melting machine that broke down, and so they ended up with a big piles of snow, and soccer season was starting. So this was an alternate site that they used. I don't know if they've used it every year or just occasionally, but Public Works Director could probably let you know.
So maybe staff then?
Yeah, I can tell you, it is one of the sites that's used depending upon how heavy of snow we have. So in this case, this will move us from, again, if all the dominoes were to fall, it'd move us from a 13-acre site roughly to cutting 5 off of that. So I guess 8. So
Councilor Boyd?
Then I noticed how the map showed, how would you access the P1 property if you can't would you go through the P2 in order to get to the P1, or would you go off of Hannon Road?
Deputy Mayor, I'm not familiar enough with the drafts of the site plan, but certainly how to use and access all of the space will be a part of the consideration as we lay out ultimately what gets built there.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Nicole or staff? Councilmember Ripsis?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if this is Nicole or Chris. We've been talking a lot about the LWCF restrictions, and tonight we're not focused on the use, but this is a restriction, as you said, that we have to get around. We started talking. There's been mentions now of subdivision and site planning and sale of the property and that kind of stuff. How far down this road can we get before those LWCF restrictions are finalized? Like, what steps are we going to feel comfortable getting to before we have to say it can't go past this? Because I want to make sure everybody's clear, Trinity and everybody, all our donors and everybody's clear with, if there are delays here, and they might be at the federal level or who knows, we can't go beyond this until those hurdles are cleared.
Councilmember Rupsis, Mayor and Council, I think the hard line in the sand is LWCF is crystal clear that you cannot have an indoor use, even a recreational indoor use. You couldn't put a rec center on the piece of property and qualify. We'd be in violation of that covenant restriction. Therefore, I think in this case, we cannot authorize the construction through the building division or other aspects of actually building the building until we have it approved by LWCF that the exchange is satisfactory. So ideally, that would be, I think, a letter, something in writing from LWCF accepting this land exchange that is proposed to them to satisfy their requirements.
Okay, I think it might be a little bit before construction is started. It might be if we're intending to sell the property or lease the property. There are specific terms. Our property interests are conveyed for private use.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So whatever that step is, I just want everybody to be clear that we can only get so far in the process until these hurdles are cleared, right?
Thank you, Councilor Rupsis. Yes, I think the change in ownership of the property. I mean, there's the animal shelter has no interest in gaining this parcel if they can't build their project on it. So we won't transfer that parcel to them till it's clear that they can do that, and we can't do that until we have LWCF sign off that the exchange meets their standard.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tom. That brought up the question because I think initially when we talked about this, it was going to be the whole acreage and stuff, and that's changed quite a bit now. Do you know what the value of the 5.1 or 145 acres are now that we have to find an exchange for, and then the funding on that is going to be provided by who? Because we're going to have to buy some land somewhere to exchange it. So how's that going to work?
So Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, no, we do have a yellow book. That's the term. The federal government requires a quote unquote yellow book appraisal. We have paid for, the taxpayers have paid for the yellow book appraisal for the full site. We are working in the full 13 acres, because that's where we thought we needed to start. We are working with the animal shelter to reduce that down to this roughly 5 acres. And so the answer to your first question is no, I do not have, no one has the value specifically of the 5. We had the value of the full parcel. And then I'm sorry, in my long answer, I missed.
Who comes up with the funding in exchange? Because if we're gonna have land's gonna be bought somewhere to exchange for this one, who's coming up with that funding?
So in conversations with the animal shelter, that is, if there's a cost there's anticipated there would be, whatever that cost is got to be a part of the fundraising effort. We do not have in the budget, in the current year's budget or the proposed budget, that the city would be purchasing a piece of property for this exchange.
Great, thank you. Okay, very good. Councilor Rowan?
Mayor, I'm sorry, I don't mean to ask another question out of order, so if other council members have a question, I can wait.
Nobody is beating down the door, so go
Okay,
ahead.
I don't want to belabor the LCWF issue, but I would be interested in seeing the original project agreement on this land. We should have something written. And I'd be interested in somebody's opinion, parks, legal, somebody. I think the obligation to maintain the anti-conversion provision under LCWF regulations is to the state, not to the city, which seems to me to at least raise the possibility that the land swap has to happen within the boundaries of the state, not the city, as a part of a statewide outdoor recreation plan. So if somebody can look into that and make sure we're understanding all of our options, I would appreciate knowing that.
And Councilmember Rowan, I'll just comment that the dollars start with the feds, but it's as you say, the state Fish and Wildlife that's in charge of administration. Okay, any other questions for staff before we go to a public hearing? Council, I'll just comment, we're now at 7:37. Normally we take a break at 7:30, but given that we're into this, I'd like to just complete this item, and then we'll take a break before going to our next item. Okay, with that, let's open for public comment on either the annexation or the zone change. We're not going to make any big distinction about that. So in your comments, you're free to make whatever comments. Just tell us your name and address and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Mayor Cole, Norma Buchanan, and City Council, thank you so much for letting me have a chance to talk. I want to share with you my position. I was asked by Trinity and Jan a year ago to lead this fundraising project, and the bottom line was $12 million. And I about fell over and thought it was daunting. And in 1 year, I've seen you 1 year ago, we are now at $6 million in commitments, which is astonishing. The enthusiasm for this project is just fantastic. It's contagion. It really is. And it's very important that we secure this land, because a lot of donors aren't, just as with anything you purchase, you want a deed or you want something of security to know that this building will have a place to be built. We have architects who've drawn up plans already who are on board with us in a lot of volunteer ways. We have builders already. Their enthusiasm is contagious. It's a wonderful contagion that we have going on here. So I just want to thank you all. And Trinity is an amazing leader of the animal shelter. And if it's all right, I'd love to ask everyone here tonight who works at the animal shelter if they will stand, because they are part of this contagion, and I'd like you to see their faces. So can you all stand? All here after working all day cleaning up dog poop and kitty poop and sick dogs and well dogs and neutering and spaying them and getting them out of surgery, and they're all pretty wonderful people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your efforts.
Oh, I also wanted to say, I'm sorry, but the sound is terrible. We can't hear you back in the North 40.
Okay.
And we can't hear any of you at all. So just, I don't know if anybody's mentioned that.
Thank
to
you for the
but-
reminder. We'll just try to keep our voices up and our mouth close to the microphone. Okay, hopefully that's a little better. This is a public hearing. Please come forward. Again, just ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes and tell us your name and if you're comfortable, your address.
Hello, council members and Mr. Mayor. My name is Jody Kaiser. I live at Riverside on 252 Riverside Road, probably 600 feet from the corner of where the YVS is going to build their building. My main concern is we all know that the shelter takes in animals, strays, sick animals to be euthanized for people. My concern is the disease that this is going to bring down to our area. They're going to have parvo puppies come in there. Parvo can live past a year in the ground, in the area. When I was a kid, they said it lived forever, but you know, it's resistant to a lot of disinfectants. They're gonna have, you know, distemper. My next big thing is I raise giant schnauzers. I show them. I love my dogs. Brucellosis. If you remember back in 2022, there was an epidemic down on the reservation, on the Crow Indian Reservation. Those dogs were testing positive to brucellosis. What brucellosis does to me as a breeder, an ethical breeder, I always take my dogs back, let's put it that way, is if brucellosis is deposited onto my property by dogs walking by, it would render my kennel to be destroyed. These dogs are not being tested for brucellosis at these shelters. It's not a mandatory test that they do. So I'm worried that my dogs that I raise, I love, I show, I put my hard-earned heart into these animals could be exposed to this disease that would render all my dogs to be destroyed because there is no cure for brucellosis. There is no vaccine. It just would be devastating to me. I love animals, and I know there's a place for them, but with that being brought into my area, they say they can control this and this and that. Well, how? How? When there are going to be stray animals brought there, and when you have overcrowding, eventually this new shelter will be overcrowded, just like the new one got overcrowded in, 10 years? So that's my concern, is the disease that's going to happen 500, 600 feet from my house and my kennels. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Right. Hello, my name is Izzy. I've been a kennel attendant and a proud member of YVAS for about 3 years now. They hired me on when I was 16 and I just never left. I got off of work today around 4:30 p.m., so I decided to count our kennel space for this evening. We had a total of 42 cats, 31 dogs, and 2 guinea pigs, and a total of clean kennels. We had 6 clean kennels in the entire shelter that were ready for new animals to come in. While 6 may sound like a lot, last year alone we saw over 7,300 animals. That's not enough, especially now that we are heading into our busy season. We simply don't have enough space. 10 other programs that we run are catered to the different needs of the community, including but not limited to our trap, neuter, release program for feral cats outside of city limits, our low-cost spay-neuter clinics, and our different vaccine clinics, including one for our veterans and senior citizens. Our PALS program to benefit our older folks and that are struggling financially, and we also partner, as mentioned before, with the YWCA to partner with domestic violence victims. And we also have a bereavement specialist for medically necessary euthanasia and many support groups for grieving owners. With all of these programs, how many animals we see annually, our space is not adequate for their mental or physical needs. While we are able to provide enrichment to help out with their stress, the physical kennels simply don't have enough wiggle room for the animals that we have. And how are we supposed to care for the animals that come through our facility if we don't even have the space for them? Some concerns that we know the community has raised has to do with barking as well. I know it hasn't been brought up quite yet, but I know it is a concern. We are not denying that dogs bark. Obviously, dogs bark. However, it does mostly happen when we are bringing them out and putting putting them back in for the night. And that is because this is the most exciting part of their day. They spend upwards of 22 hours a day in their kennel alone. And those 2 hours outside is so important to them, and they are so happy and so excited. And cleaning staff is very efficient. Our dogs will be in and out before you guys even realize it. And we are currently in a residential area, and we haven't gotten complaints about noise before. I understand that another big factor that people didn't want us to move our building for has to do with the sugar beet factory, the crematory. And I know we aren't even using it in the new building, but I felt it was important to mention that about 20 minutes away is the sugar beet factory. With emissions so high, they had to pay for a permit, and on average for a burn day, our crematory releases about 540 pounds of CO2, carbon dioxide, into the air. But according to the Montana Department of Environmental Quality, the sugar beet factory per hour releases 531 pounds of CO2 while it is operating 24 hours a day. I wanted to see what would be released through an 8-hour day, and I found that 4,248 pounds of CO2 is released in just that short amount of time. That is 29,736 pounds a week based on the 8-hour day, 7 days a week. If you're worried about our building, consider how damaging the factory is. So once again, as a citizen of Billings and an advocate for shelters, how are we supposed to care for the animals that come through our facility if we don't have the space to house them? Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Hey, if you could, let's hold down the applause, please. Thank you. Next.
Hi, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Curtis Eckhart, and I live at 518 Riverside Road, which is basically kitty corner from the proposed area. I've lived down there since the 80s, and in the early 90s, I started to maintain that park by cutting the grass for hay. At the time I started that, I leased it from the city. Basically, I paid a fee, I leased it, and the gentleman that I leased it from told me that it was a city park. I could not limit access to it. I couldn't put a gate on the entrance to it, and that I couldn't store things over there for it. I said, all right, I agreed to all that, and I cut the hay. One of my questions to him was, what if somebody else all of a sudden wants to come down here and take this away from me? You guys want to, and he told me it's a city park. It's not up for development. It's, they had no plans to do any of that kind of stuff because it was a city park. And so I was good with that. Unfortunately, the tree farm upended me. And so they took over that when my lease expired. I own 8 acres down there, and at one point I had thought about developing that 8 acres, and they told me if I put a certain number of houses or whatever lots on there, that I would have to leave a portion of that land for a park. And I said, well, I got a park right across the street. And he said it still had to be designated as a park if I subdivided with this certain number of lots. Even if I left it undeveloped, it would have to remain undeveloped forever, but it would still be designated as a park. So if I got to develop, or if I got to leave this sit as a park, if I decided to subdivide, which I chose not to, why don't we leave this park, even if it's undeveloped? We all get to go over there and enjoy it, walk around. They're going to limit access to their areas, so I would appreciate it if you'd consider not approving this measure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Richard Edwards. I'm not a very good speaker. I'm 85% deaf, so I'm going to do the best I can. I have property close to Wilson Park where tentatively they want to build an animal shelter. I would ask the mayor and the city council respectively to deny the annexation at this time, perhaps table it. I would like to ask each and every one of you if you would like an animal shelter built 60 to 70 yards from your place of residence. Okay, I think performance engineering misrepresented to the city county planning board the residential houses south of the prescribed land. On their schematic, they did show the houses 60 to 70 yards south. There's 28 to 29 residential houses in the area that signed a protest petition. We feel that the city and the city planning board was not on the up with us. The last time you had a meeting for the resolution, Nicole Cromley told us, you could go and comment and you have 3 minutes. Mayor, you would not take any comments at that meeting. You remember that? I don't think they've done a thorough investigation on the land in the park. We did. Performance engineering did not list the names of the people adjacent to that. We had to find the people, track them down. They were not the names that was listed by performance engineering. More also with this new House Bill 231 in the Montana legislature right now, I don't think it's in the interest of Billings to be spending money not knowing we're going to be $5.5 million short, according to the newscast from the city finance. And like I said, I've got a piece of paper here, and I'm going to give it to the city administrator right now. It's a court document. The yellow highlighted part.
You know, sir, if you could just, we've got it, but
It's
if you
a
want to
court
describe
document.
what it is while you close, you want to just tell us what it was highlighted there?
It's a court document signed by Judge C.B. Sandy. It says they cannot put a sewer in that land.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Chris, if you could, we'll want to see copies of that. So thank you very much. Next.
Hi, Billings Council. My name's Lisa Robinson. I'm a volunteer and I foster dogs that are overflow from the shelter. And I think the shelter is a good thing for the city to take care of. And I think you should look into doing something about backyard breeders and reducing the number of dogs that we have to take care of in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I'm Randy Crable, and I live down on Minnie Place, 528 Minnie Place. And I'm sorry, but I'm not for this animal shelter being put where they're going to put it. All of you, any of you have the animals? Okay, what happens when fireworks go off? They're terrorized. And on our place down there, we put on a show almost every year. It's almost akin to what you see down at the fairgrounds. And I'm not against fireworks. I love fireworks. But those animals are going to be stuck in that shelter, and they're going to be terrorized. My dog, it gets so bad that I have to literally put her on a leash and take her out in the backyard and walk her around to get her to do her job. And I pray to God no boomer goes off, because she's going to rip my arm off trying to get back in the house. So this sounds like a wonderful place to put it. But is it really? Because they do it for about a week before the 4th of July, sometimes even after the 4th of July. They do it at Christmas time a lot of times and New Year's. And I love my animals. I don't like seeing animals being terrorized, and it terrorizes all the animals. I've only had one dog that didn't get terrorized, but she got so angry, she just barked. But that's why I just don't think this is a good area. There's other areas of this town where they're at right now on Monad Lane. They don't have to worry about that kind of stuff so much. because they're away from any of the neighborhoods. If they could put it down at the BOC, they'd at least have the highway between them and any other neighborhoods. It wouldn't be close. And my concern is for the animals. We need an animal shelter, no two ways about it. And I have no problem with having one. But I just don't think this is the place to do it, because the fireworks down there are terrible. And nobody, I mean, we have sheriffs come driving through there and they don't even pay no attention. And these people, in fact, they'd spend so much money on it. I don't know how they can even afford to do it, but they certainly do. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hallie. I am the Public Services Coordinator with Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter, as well as Trinity's Administrative Assistant. I would just like to kind of bring up some of the public offerings that we bring to the public outside of simply housing animals. We have an amazing vet staff who we have worked to expand our offerings to our community. One of the first women who came up here to talk had a very good point about being concerned about the spread of disease. And I would just have to say the most effective way to prevent the spread of disease within your community is to vaccinate animals. We currently offer monthly vaccinations to the public, as well as offering vaccinations to shelters around us all across Montana that we offer spay and neuter programs, alterations, and by the ability to expand, that will allow us to not only keep more strays off of the streets, prevent the spread of further disease, but also prevent further strays from being created. I also would like to just say that if anybody has any interest in seeing our building, seeing what it's like, has any concerns or questions, they can reach out to me at by calling the shelter and leaving me a message, and I would be happy to schedule you for a tour to answer any questions, as well as if anybody needs their dog spayed or neutered or their cat, to reach out as well, because we are happy to offer those to the community, and it is incredibly important to us that we offer services to community outside of just housing strays. And so that olive branch is extended. If anybody is interested, if anybody is curious, if anybody is in need of services, please reach out, ask for me, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Brandon Chapman. I'm going to be probably the closest neighbor if they annex this and build the Yellowstone Animal Shelter. I've got young kids that have asthma. My biggest concern is all the chemicals and stuff they use to clean their kennels and stuff. I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and it's just concerning. And then the other thing is you guys were already talking about how are they going to access it with the snow removal. There's no other way, so they're going to have to go through our residential area to get to it. And that's basically all I got to say. Just worried about my kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Ron Duty. We have the property at 442 Riverside Drive, which is right across the street where the Texaco sign, need to see that we're restored. We built hot rods there. We went down to that area to do it because it's a nice quiet area and it's fun. We don't have any problems. Everybody talks about theft in different areas. You get theft when you got traffic. We don't want any theft. We don't want any traffic. It's like heaven down there in the evenings. And I spend from 6 to 10 o'clock at night down there almost every evening and all weekends. And we have a lot of public guys come down. Burn the Point was started there. We've done a ton of things for Billings because of that area, and it all goes downtown. We just want to leave it the way it is. Don't need anything else to change it. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
Kevin Nelson, 4235 Bruce Avenue. I just wonder if this isn't a cycle we're going through. There's several articles out there. You can find them all over. Here's one of them. Animal shelter populations are up. Here's why and how shelters are responding. And they sort of take it all the way back to COVID-19. And we're just cycling through this right now because there were so many adoptions. Spay and neuter centers were not weren't doing much. And we're just cycling through this right now with a lot of animals that are just coming into the system. And I just wonder if you just don't wait and let this cycle sort of go through just cycle through and then revisit this in a couple years after this cycle is gone and see if you still maybe you may not have a problem. Not really sure, but you can find these stories are all over the place. Might consider it. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am Dr. Joyce Stevens, and I am the founding president of the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter. We founded the animal shelter because I had a dog that if it ended up in the shelter, I was afraid for its life because of how animals were treated at that time in our shelter. And so we hatched a plan and we got the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter up and running. And as big as we dreamed at that time, what Trinity and her staff have done is they took that dream and ran with it, and they have run so far with it. I mean, they're over the hill and out of sight from anything that we ever dreamed of. And I'm so immensely proud of what they have done. But I told myself I wasn't going to choke up, but well, shit, I messed that up. Anyway, sorry. So I want to address a couple things. My specialty is infectious disease, so I want to address the brucellosis comments. So we live in a world in which there's a lot of infections, as we found out in the last 5 years. And even during COVID, we still went to the store, right? So we put ourselves in and around illnesses all the time. With respect to brucellosis, it's transmitted generally through the consumption of unpasteurized milk. It's transmitted via inhalation, but in areas where it's very concentrated, so things like labs and slaughterhouses, by physical contact and through skin wounds. So any germ that's going to escape, if there was a brucellosis germ or germs, a couple of them in the shelter, if they happen to escape, it's unlikely they're going to cause disease 600 feet away, especially if those animals have a healthy immune system. So I don't think that is something we need to worry about. They do have vets on staff, and they're going to be working with the new vet college closely. Regarding fireworks, I just wish you would enforce the firework restrictions in the city. I'm forced to leave the city during the 4th of July as a result, but that's another subject. You know, the YVAS is a true community resource, and with the growing population, we are going to need to house animals more and more. And what YVAS provides is just, I can't even describe it. I mean, I am so proud of them. They are really a leader of animal care in this nation. They are one of the best in this nation. And I want to remind the people that, you know, and I understand the fear of change and what might come into your neighborhood, but the land will get developed and it could be worse. You know, I sat on this council at one time and I saw things come through that, you know, you pick and choose what you want to have in your neighborhood, and you could do worse than one of the best animal shelters in the country. So thank you.
Thank you. Please hold off on the applause, would you? Okay, next.
Oh, okay.
Mayor, council members, thank you for having us. I am Michaela Chapman. I live at 504 Mini Place, so we are the closest on Hannon to this parcel of land. I have a couple of photos here that kind of show where they're set to be, which is the northwest corner of this parcel of land. However, the picture that is at YVAS does extend all the way down to the southwest corner, which is right against Hannon Road. And that kind of goes along with what Councilmember Neese was talking about as far as connecting Sugar and Riverside Road through Hannon. My fear with that is that during the winter, they are still using Wilson Park to dump all of the snow. So being that they would have no access through YVAS, they would have to use Hannon Road. And as my husband said, with our young kids, we live in a small cul-de-sac. There's another family down the road from us that their young kids are up and down this road daily to go to school, riding their bikes, going to friends' houses. That's a huge concern for me, the extra traffic that's coming through and the big equipment that they're having to use for snow removal. If they are going to then connect Hannon to Sugar and Riverside through Hannon, would be, you know, a safety factor for our children. And then just how they're going to use that road to then dump snow through us or through Hannon in many places versus just off of Riverside Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Justin Hutchinson, and I am the president of Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter. And this is extremely nerve-wracking, so thank you to everybody that got up here and talked. I do this for a living and talk on microphones all the time, and this is the hardest thing I've ever done. So props to everybody that gets up here and does this week in, week out. I want to make it very clear that Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter and Trinity are very, very transparent. If there are concerns that future neighbors may have, that current neighbors may have, they are very, very accessible to answer any questions. I know that whenever I have an issue, whenever I have a question, when people on Facebook, on social media have concerns or complaints, they are very, very quick to respond and make sure that everybody is knowledgeable about what is going on. So that being said, I invite anybody that has any concerns, any questions whatsoever, to please contact Trinity, contact somebody at Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter, and make those concerns known. Because as you saw with earlier talking about the cremation and the aquamation, they're very open to changing. They are very open to listening, very open to understanding concerns of the neighbors. So that being said, I also want to point out that there are a lot of concerns about diseases, noise, etc. There is currently an animal shelter nearby already that nobody seems to have an issue with or have not made that issue clear during this public comment time. So I think that these issues of this other shelter moving in are very focused on not wanting something in their empty field rather than the actual animal shelter itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to speak. I'm Susan Edwards. I lived out on Minnie Place, and my husband and I purchased this property in 1985. We knew all about Wilson Park because we bought the land from the gentleman that was an heir to the family. And he told us that there would never be a place over in that area because it would be it was a city park. When Velma passed away, she gave it to the city as a city park only. And now we're worried about having all this extra traffic and noise. And yeah, we are aware of the other animal shelter being across the road. Yeah, they get quite noisy at night. But you know, for some reason, we've kind of learned to tolerate that. But it's a whole lot farther away. It's 3 lots away from our place. But anyway, we would like to, I'm not a very good talker. I got notes too, and I can't even read. There is an awful big lot right now over on Midland Road that would be perfect for the animal shelter. It's over by the evidence locker. There's plenty of room over there. There's already curbs, gutters, sewer, water, everything you need. And it's not in a residential area. I'm not against the animal shelter. I'm against the way it was proposed. The animal shelter was given Wilson Park in February of 2024. And we didn't know anything about any of this until last summer when they hung up a big, huge sign, future home of Yellowstone Animal Shelter. Well, whoopee-doo. You mean, that's kind of like getting the cart before the horse here, you know? You should have got all of this stuff here done before you gave the land away. And Velma, we got her will and her testament and everything, and it's still in there as a legal document signed by a judge saying that that land would be given to the city as a city park only, and that there would be no sewer lines would go through that property. So it's just kind of, I wish you people will take in consideration all of us residents that have been living there for many, many years in this peaceful, quiet area. There's no violence over there. There's no crime over there. And if there is any crime, our dog lets us know that they're out there in the backyard, and we call the cops or we go out there and tell them to get away. So please take in consideration our feelings. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And just for the record, we don't want any confusion, the property has not been transferred to Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter.
No, it hasn't been, but it was given to them according to a statement, according to the webpage.
Yeah, we'll check on that. If that's the case, that was incorrect on the website, so. Very good. Next, Craig?
Good evening. Just wanted to bring up a couple points of clarification. If you guys could refer to your exhibits that you've seen, the proposed zone change doesn't actually extend all the way down to Hannon Road. It's located up in that northwest quadrant. The frontage along Riverside is about 440 feet, and then there's an additional 200 to 240 feet south of the proposed zone change that will still be P1 and owned by the city of Billings. So as far as snow storage and access, a new approach, yes, they do access currently off the northwest where this zone change is taking place, but a new approach could be put in off of Riverside Road. That could take some coordination with the city just to maybe have truck drivers not accessing off of Hannon. There is no proposed improvements along Hannon. Testimony from these people, they don't want any improvements along Hannon either. So at this time, it's not proposed. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Next.
Yes, I'm Carl Lynch, and I live on Many Place. I have no complaints about an animal shelter, but if Wilson Park was designated as a park, I understand that. When my wife, we've been there like 22 years, or she's been here 24, but my concern is mainly the traffic. The streets aren't that wide. There's no sidewalks on Riverside or Orchard. No way for it'd be a congestion of traffic. It'd be a mess. Another concern is the sugar beet factory. It's a little distance, but they have mounds of lime with settling ponds on top. And one time in the last 20 years, it broke and it flooded down on Riverside, down State Street of just muck, and which could happen on that side, which could wipe out if you did build a dog animal shelter there. I have no complaints about dogs, or we don't even have a dog anymore. But it's, to spend that kind of money for an animal shelter and then have that happen at the sugar beet factory, I'd be worried about. And then the traffic too, it's cause a lot of problems. And then people dropping off animals when the shelter is closed. It's not open 24 hours. It happens at the other shelter, animal shelter up on Hannon by Sugar. People are always dropping dogs and cats and everything, rabbits. We get rabbits running all over the place in the summer. It's just, it'd be nice to find another place for it, but that's all I have to say.
Very good, thank you. Any other comment? Any other public comment? This is a public hearing where we close public comment period. Okay, okay.
Mayor, Civil Council, greetings again.
one of the things that
And Paul, if you just tell us your name again, for the
Yes,
record.
yep, Paul Clark. Yep, they're 7th and 32nd Street. One of the things I heard this man on my right say that he didn't want anyone to protest or no members of the city residents to be able to speak in opposition of having this. Now, why would that be? And I've heard him say that a couple other times in his fine print when he speaks. He's big on no public income. Why is that? That's why we're here. And I would just like for clarification on that subject. Again, I'm with these people. Riverside Road is, I've been down there many times. It's pretty quiet. What's wrong with the used old warehouse? Right over here, we're trying to annex a lot of this property that's down by Western Ranch, 13th and 2nd Avenue. This sounds like the place is, and I've been there. There's a lot of open spaces there. There's a lot of warehouses down there. It would be saving a lot of money to rejuvenate an old warehouse compared to that size that we're at now. With Cisco taking over the back, the city decided to build a golf course. That was supposed to be planned for cemetery. We went through that. That went out the window. So anyway, Costco, a warehouse, First Avenue South, there's plenty of warehouses there. How much acreage do you need? And access to roads that are already there, and curbing and sewer. Leave it a park. You've been down there. I don't know if I want to go down there as a park because of the contaminant next to the sugar factory, but that's what it is. That's what I have. I'll keep coming in here and throwing my opinions up, guys, because that's what this is about. Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment? No one is coming forward. I'll close the public comment period on this public hearing. Thank you very much, members of the public. That is what this is about. So much appreciated. Council, we've had our public hearing. We will, we need to deal with the annexation separately from the zone change. So we'll come back to the annexation. You've had the presentation, you've had questions. Are there motions or any further questions relating to item 5A? Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and make a motion. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution conditionally approving annexation 25-01 as recommended by staff.
Very good. Thank you. Second by Councilmember Owen. Would either of you like to speak to your motion? Nope. Okay, you have a motion on the floor. Comments. Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to, I just appreciate staff when you talked about the waiver of annexation, even though it's city property, you indicated that even though it's city property, you know, we have to pay for it anyway, but you chose to make sure that waiver was included because that property may transfer hands. And that again, I appreciate that thoughtfulness of thinking down the road past our tenure here and your tenure in the city to make sure that what we have in place is consistent throughout the process. So thank you very much for making sure that waiver was there. I hope the city continues that look in this, if this land does eventually get sold to the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter, that you would look at that for the future as well, because this again is city property, city asset. We're going to be proposing to divest for the city public. But if that land is not ever used for the city, I would hope a revisionary clause would be included in that, so to make sure that that land is back, the use is making sure it's for the public use. And so instead of again just selling this type of land, we want to make sure that if we're going to do that, we're doing it for the right use for the future. So thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Further comments on the motion? Any further comment on the motion? Before we proceed to a vote. Okay, the motion is for approval, item 5A, consistent with the staff recommendation. We'll just have a voice vote. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That's annexation. Item 5B is the zone change. So is the, council, or is there a motion or further questions on item 5B, zone change 1061? Councilmember Gillick.
Yes, having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve first reading ordinance for zone change 1061 and adopt the findings of the 10 review criteria as recommended by the zoning commission.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Shaw. Either of you like to speak to your motion?
Sure.
Councilmember Gillick.
You know, if a community isn't changing, it's dying, and I understand the concerns of the residents in the area and property owners. I really appreciate your bringing those forward. I appreciate that nearby residents.
Please, no
raise their
comments from
concern.
the audience.
I also appreciate that Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter has heard these concerns and worked with its designers and with the neighbors to satisfy these concerns as well. So I will support this.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion? Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to echo those comments, and it's a difficult thing sitting in this seat. It is. And I want to say I've heard you, I listened, I took notes on what you said. I really hope and I believe that the animal shelter, if this moves forward, and to be clear, this is the beginning of the process. We shall see where it leads us beyond this. But I do believe that you have a very willing partner here who is willing to listen to neighborhood concerns and try and address them. I think one of the challenges that we see is that it really doesn't matter where in the city new things are proposed. It's difficult. Change is difficult, and it's difficult for everyone who's within the radius of change. And it happens in all of our neighborhoods at different times and at different scales. And it's challenging for us to work through as a community. And this is a part of the process, it's an important part of the process. So I want to echo that I've heard you, and I believe that the rest of the audience has heard you as well. And I'm committed to helping make sure that your concerns are addressed as this process, if it moves forward. So I appreciate that everyone's been here. I appreciate the animal folks that have been here as well and gotten up to speak, because they're both very important perspectives in this decision. So that's why I'm happy to second this, and I will support this zone change. Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion? Councilmember Neese?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I will support the motion as well. I do think the public did bring up some questions that will have to be answered when it comes time for the next stage of this. I don't think this stage is going to impact one way or the other, whether or not this gets transferred to Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter. But they did bring up some interesting information that was given to the city administrator about the history of the land that probably needs to be answered. And so I hope that we hear back from the city administrator on that when it comes time for that question. But I will support the motion, and I think this is a good way to utilize this land. And so thank you.
Thank you very much. Further discussion? I just want to echo 2 points. One, I'll also want to know what kind of private contracts there were in the way of covenants that might or might not address this issue. That was brought up. I think it's very important, very valuable. And then the issue of brucellosis parvo disease, that is not going to go away. So I appreciated Councilmember, Dr. Stevens' comments there. She seems quite knowledgeable, but I would encourage the animal shelter as well as the members of the neighborhood, if they have a scientific basis for that, we can't operate on speculation. But if there's actually scientific basis and best practices, potentially, if this goes forward, and that's a big if, as part of a transfer agreement from the city to the animal shelter, we could conceivably work into that requirements to protect the neighborhood if there was a sound scientific basis. So I encourage you to continue to do your research on that so that we have sound scientific basis if this goes forward. Any other discussion on the motion? Any other discussion? Okay, we'll proceed to a vote. The motion is for approval. Item 5B, zone change. If in favor And here I need to clarify that we do have, again, have a valid protest. So this requires a 2/3 vote to pass, 7 out of 10. So if in favor of item, of the motion on 5B, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously, meaning 10 out of 10, so you've got the 2/3 affirmative vote. That concludes item 5B. We'll move to 5C, which is adding the annexed property to Ward 1. Hunter, planning, any sort of presentation on that?
We have no additional presentation, Mayor.
Okay, council, you've seen that. It is a requirement there be a public hearing about whether the property gets added to Ward 1. So we'll open it up for public hearing. Is there any public comment on item 5C, adding this property to the boundaries of Ward 1? Any public comment on that issue only? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period on that. Back to council. Motion or questions? Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve the first reading ordinance expanding the boundaries of Ward 1 as recommended by staff.
Second by Councilmember Gulick. Any discussion? Okay, we'll proceed to a vote. If in favor of the motion, which is in favor, item 5C, consistent with staff recommendation, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That concludes item 5 and all the subparts. Again, our appreciation to you, everybody who came out, and for your patience. Council, the next item up is item 2 that we move to come after item 5. Why don't we take a break? And it is 8:26. We'll come back as close, no later than 8:35. No later than 8:35. Welcome back. It's 8:37. We have gone back now to item 2. So Denise, would you read item number 2?
Yes, Mayor, and did you want items A?
Yeah, I
B, and-
apologize. We're gonna have separate votes on all of these.
Right.
But the public hearing will be joint. I talked with staff. So if you would read 2A, 2B, 2C, and 2D.
I will. Public hearing and first reading ordinances for zone change 1060, housekeeping amendments for the following sections of the zoning code. Sections 27-300, 27-400, 27-500, 27-600, 27-800, 27-900, 27-1000, and 27-1800. General cleanup of to correct errors, cross-references, omissions, and numerical mistakes. Section B is sections 27-309, tables 27-1000, 1, section 27-1003, and 27-1803, related to the definition of a manufactured home. Section 2C is section 27-1704, options for enforcement of violations of the zoning code. And finally, table 27-1000.1, to allow vehicle sales as a special review use within the corridor mixed use 1 zone district.
Very good. Thank you, Denise. We'll turn it over to Nicole. Nicole, my inclination is to have you make your presentation on all of these together, but if you had a different thing something different in mind, I'll defer to you. And then we'd hold our questions until you completed your presentation on all 4. If you'd prefer that we have questions after each section, though, we can do that as well. So we'll leave that to you.
Well, let's run through the whole presentation first, and then I'll take your questions.
Very good.
As the city clerk read, there are 4 ordinances associated with this zone change, primarily because each ordinance has to deal with one issue as required by law. So that's why there are 4 separate ordinances in the proposed amendments. So the City Zoning Commission initiated these amendments in December of '24. The code corrections in one of those ordinances, the general housekeeping ordinance, do not affect the substance of the code. There are substantive amendments in the 3 other ordinances that are by subject matter. We did do a work session on these proposed amendments in January 2025. There was one amendment that dropped off of the list, and that concerned the conversion of a shipping container to another use, such as a residence or an office building or a coffee kiosk. Our planning staff research basically came up with a lot of different approaches to this type of thing in their zoning code and land development codes. And although many of them had all of these regulations on their books, not a single municipality that we looked at had ever had a proposal. And it's primarily because they need to meet a section of the Uniform Building Code that is hard to meet with making it economically feasible. So they did a lot of work, and the result was nothing. So I figured we could probably just leave that one off of our to-do list. So there are no shipping container amendments in this set of code amendments. Then the Zoning Commission worked with staff, as well as staff worked with other divisions such as code enforcement and the city attorney to perfect these ordinances and get them in shape for the public hearing. We had the public hearing in March. The Zoning Commission is recommending approval of all 4 of these ordinances to you. And we'll go through them kind of at a high level here. We could get down into more detail with your questions if you have any. So the general cleanup ordinances just to correct cross-reference errors, numerical errors, where we have two different sections that are inconsistent with each other. We have added back height exceptions to each one of the zone district types. We used to have this as a general exception. We only, for whatever reason, put it into the public zone district, the P1, P2, and P3. But it does apply and should apply universally across all the different type of zone districts. We removed the block design standards from the planned neighborhood developments because the city adopted block design standards and street standards in the latest revisions to the subdivision code, which is where those design standards should live, because that's where that gets done. We put them originally in this zoning code because we didn't have those in our subdivision regulations, and we weren't amending those regulations at the time we adopted the new zoning. So those are out, proposed to be out of the P&D section. We also expanded the list of intended recreation uses in Public 1, and it's the only reason why we did that is because the way the code is written, it's meant to be an exclusive list of uses, and it did not include many of the uses we already have in our public parks. So we expanded the list to make sure that we've got all of those bases covered now and in the future. So that's the general cleanup ordinance. The manufactured home district change was based on a law change that the state approved in 2023. It used to be the language in the state law allowed you to differentiate between manufactured home types based on materials, design, whether it was set on a permanent foundation or not. And in 2023, the state legislature erased all that. They basically said a manufactured home is any manufactured home built on or after the adoption of the HUD code, which is 1976. Anything that was built before that time is no longer considered a manufactured home. It is a mobile home. And mobile homes are not required to be allowed in any zoning district. And the cities and towns are not required to provide provisions in any of their districts for mobile homes. But they are required to provide some land within their jurisdiction where manufactured homes can be allowed. So what we did was take out all of those references to type 1 and type 2 manufactured homes and left it just as the language in the state law is. So we'll still have manufactured home zoning. We'll still allow manufactured homes as long as they're built on or after the adoption of the HUD code in 1976. We are not going to allow what we used to call the type 2, which is anything manufactured prior to 1976. We do have those manufactured homes in some of our mobile home manufactured home parks in Billings, but after 50 years and the building standard they were built to, they're really not terribly habitable anymore. And so when those do get replaced, we want to make sure that they get replaced with a manufactured home that was built on or after 1976. So that's the reason for those changes. And because all of those words and terms are throughout the zoning code, you'll see that 4 different sections of the code had to be amended to get that language out of there. The zoning enforcement and violations, section 27-1700, the current way it's crafted is that the zoning coordinator decides the best way to enforce any particular violation. Now, in 2021, or actually before 2021, that wasn't an issue because I was the code enforcement manager. So it was like one and the same job. Now there are actually 2 jobs. And it doesn't provide people who may be in violation with any predictability of what the consequences might be for a violation. So we worked with the Code Enforcement Division manager and with the city attorney's office to figure out, well, what is or what should be a civil infraction, which is a lower standard of proof and is not a large penalty in general, and what should be a misdemeanor violation, which includes the possibility of jail time and much higher fines, but also a higher burden of proof. So basically, we made two lists in the code. Some will be municipal infractions, and some will be misdemeanors. Now, of course, you can't think of every situation that where you might have a violation. So in those instances where it's not on the list as a misdemeanor or on the list as a municipal infraction, we'll work together, the code enforcement and planning zoning coordinator, to figure out what's the best approach in those circumstances. And of course, the city attorney's office is always involved with those decisions as well. So I think we came to a good resolution of that in that code amendment. And finally, here's one that we came up against recently, where a property owner, an auto sales business, leased a piece of property that didn't have the right zoning for what they intended to use it for, auto sales. Auto sales are not allowed use in corridor mixed use 1, and they are allowed uses in corridor mixed use 2. But this parcel, because of its location and their choice to just go up the ladder to corridor mixed use 2, there are a lot of uses that would be inappropriate for that location that were allowed in CMU 2. The zoning commission, when they had their hearing, they understood that this was probably not a good choice in the code and would have probably recommended approval if it were a special review, keeping the same underlying zoning. So what they proposed to staff was to please figure out a way to get this in here as a special review, and then that applicant can come back. They ended up withdrawing their application. You never heard it at the city council. They withdrew it because they didn't want to get it denied. They weren't the property owner, so they didn't want the owner's land to get locked for a year because of a zone change denial. So this puts that in as a special review use. It may not be appropriate at every location or every corridor mixed use 1 property, but there should be the ability for someone to say, I think it is appropriate, and here's why I think that. And I'm going to prove that it is appropriate here, which is what a special review is all about. And I think that's my last slide. And any questions?
Very good. Thank you, Nicole. Questions for Nicole on any of those 4 items?
I have one.
Oh, thank you. Councilmember Kennedy.
Nicole, on the one you did before on the violation and code enforcement, there was on there, it had an example of a fencing violation. Just something that's been ongoing that we have never addressed, and we talked about it, and that is we have so many fences that are out of compliance across the city of Billings. How do we go forward with some type of grandfather clause on that?
Well,
because if we approve today, excuse me, if we approve today the changes in the zoning for enforcement, does that automatically trigger code enforcement to go out and fine people for their fences?
No, it doesn't. The code enforcement division takes complaints, they investigate, they help that property owner get into compliance. If there is no compliance to be had voluntarily, that's when they will start down the enforcement road with issuing municipal infractions or issuing misdemeanor cites, which requires, a misdemeanor requires the assistance of the city attorney's office. So this wouldn't make fence enforcement not voluntary. In other words, there are fences that are in clear vision areas of streets and alleys throughout the city. Many of those were built without permits. Some of those were built with variances. So there's a lot of investigation that has to happen before you go after someone for a violation of the fence rules and the clear vision rules. The clear vision rules are safety based. So when there is a issue of public safety because someone's fence that was built, regardless of if it was yesterday or 20 years ago, those safety violations are important to get addressed. And I know, well, Wyeth is somewhere here, and he could probably give you more information about what their plan of attack, so to speak, is.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council and Councilmember Kennedy. And yeah, we're actually what we're looking at having to do, and again, it's going to take some time. But we're coordinating and talking with engineering on the clear vision piece. We're just looking at options on how we could proceed with some of these situations, even to the extent of looking at whether our clear vision zones and such could be adjusted to address some of that in certain cases. Obviously, yeah, we run the gamut from alleys, which you've brought up before and it's been brought up before, on quiet residential streets, to corners at very busy arterial collector intersections, et cetera. So we are working and having those internal discussions at this point. I don't have a time when that will come back, but it is on the radar, and we're looking at different ways that we could potentially address it. That would be, like I said, whether it's adjusting clear vision if that's possible, and going from there, kind of to make sure we're not missing anything on the safety side.
I would like to be involved with those discussions, Wyatt, please.
Councilmember Kennedy, Mayor and Council, we can figure out how that would work.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Other questions for Nicole or Wyeth? Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. You don't hear this much from me, but I want to say thank you, Nicole. You and I spent 2 years on Project Recode, and it wasn't fun. One of the things that came out of this is that the people in this demanded that you came back, the planning department came back every so often to tell us what was wrong and how to fix it. So I just want to say thanks for showing up and doing this. That was really part of the recode, that anything that was broken was fixed. If we didn't fix it right now, we'll fix it later, and you're trying to do that, so thank you.
Very good, thank you. Thank you for saying thank you, Councilmember Boyette. Would anybody like to thank me for thanking Councilmember Boyette? Councilmember Bernice?
Mayor, thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, very good.
Well, Nicole, I want to echo what Councilmember Kennedy brought forward. I know code enforcement's not here, but so Chris, this is probably for you. The fact that code enforcement does enforce complaints is true, but they are directed that if they're out there and they see a clear violation, they're going to address the issue because they're already there. And so there may be times when they see a fence that may be out of compliance because they're in the neighborhood, and they're going to address that. I would hope, because this issue is not resolved within the council on what's a safe zone or not safe zone, but I believe residential or alleys dropping into 25-mile-an-hour residential streets it should not be a safety hazard unless someone is speeding too fast, and then that's going to happen whether you got clear or not. And so I think we need to make sure that the message is, yeah, we're going to pass these violations, but what I don't want to be hearing is getting calls from members of the community suddenly, because their alley has now been cited because it's been that way for 25 years, going from residential to a residential, and they're getting a code violation. And so would hope that we address this issue quickly as far as what is considered a safe zone or not. But that's my concern, Chris. I don't know if you can address that and agree with that, or would you be able to put that, make sure code enforcement understands there's a change coming. Please don't proactively address these fence issues until there's a clear definition from council.
In working with our code enforcement department, that is their approach, is not to get ahead of themselves, but they've been working with public safety, public works, engineering, trying to understand the clear zones or those safety areas before taking any action.
Thank you.
Very good. Anything else for Nicole? Okay, let's move on through these items. First one up is item 2. Oh, thank you very much. This is a public hearing. So we'll open up for public hearing, and this will be a joint public hearing on 2A, B, C, or D. So if anybody is there and like to comment on any of those items, this is your opportunity. Is there any public comment in this public hearing on items 2A, 2B, 2C, or 2D? Any public comment? This is a public hearing. Any public comment? No one is coming forward. Before we close, anybody, final call? No one's coming forward. We'll close the public hearing. Back to council on item 2A. Councilmember Gulick?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve first reading ordinance amending sections 27-300, 27-400, 27-500, 27-600, 27-800, 27-900, 27-1000, and 27-1800. General cleanup to correct errors, cross-references, omissions, and numerical mistakes as recommended by the Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Second by Councilmember Shaw. Would either of you like to speak to your motion?
No.
No. Any other comment on the motion? Any other discussion on the motion before we proceed to a vote? Okay, the motion is for approval. Item 2A. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is item 2B. Is there Councilmember Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve first reading ordinance amending sections 27-309, table 27-1000, dot 1, 27-1003, and 27-1803 related to the definition of a manufactured home as recommended by the Zoning Commission.
Good. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Ripsis. Either of you like to speak to your motion? No. Other discussion on the motion? Motion is for approval. Item 2B. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. Motion is for approval. Item 2B. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is item 2C. Is there a motion? Councilmember Aspenleiter.
I got to try to get paid tonight.
Yeah, jeez. Be simpler if you just told us, what you're not recusing yourself on, perhaps. Go ahead.
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve first reading ordinance amending section 27-1704, options for enforcement of violations of the zoning code as recommended by the Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Tidswell. Either of you like to speak to your motion? Okay, any discussion on the motion? Motion is for approval. Item 2C. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. If in favor of the motion to approve item 2C, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next and final item is item 2D. Is there a motion? Councilmember Gulick.
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve first reading ordinance amending table 27-1000.1, to allow vehicle sales as a special review use within the corridor mixed use 1, that is the CMU 1 zone district, as recommended by the zoning commission.
Good. Second, Councilmember Rogers. Would either of you like to speak to your motion? Okay, any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? We'll proceed to a vote. Okay, seeing none, motion is for approval, item 2D, consistent with the staff recommendation. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. That concludes item 2 and brings us then to the public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items?
Kevin Nelson, 4235 Bruce Avenue. So at the regular March TIF meeting down in the South Billings, I thought it was highly inappropriate that Councilman Kennedy shows up and personally requests that the Torgenson's application be revisited. The TIF board had already approved the TIF application for Torgenson's. Their request was for $900,000. The TIF board agreed to $300,000, and that's in the meeting minutes. But Mr. Kennedy shows up and personally asks the board if they could revisit this at the April meeting, and could possibly, maybe they could give him the $900,000, but maybe they could make it in installments. Maybe we could give him $300,000 a year. So we got a council member that has budget authority over the TIF board, has authority to approve or not approve an application for taxpayer money. And when he doesn't get, his friends don't get what he wants, he just personally comes down and requests this? Highly, damn unethical. I've never seen anything like it, that they would just brazenly come down and just say, hey, my buddy needs some more money. What can you do for me? And then Dick Zier, our consultant, he goes, yeah, we're going to revisit that in April. So they've already schemed this thing out that they're going to revisit the Torgenson application in April to give apparently them another $600,000. I mean, that's pretty wild. I'm not so sure that this body wouldn't offer up a censure to Mr. Kennedy and say, we're not going to stand by and let a council member come down and influence a board that we have a memorandum of understanding that we work with. We work with their budget, and highly inappropriate. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment on anything not on our agenda this evening? Any other comment on something not on our agenda? No one's coming forward, so we'll close the public comment on non-agenda items and then move on to our unfinished business item, the pedestrian bicycle master plan that was tabled at the last regular business meeting. We don't really have a presentation per se, but I think it would be good to have some sort of context, especially for anybody who might be watching, or even myself who was not at the meeting, but I know generally what went on, and the city attorney was involved in that, or Chris. Do you want to say anything before I just look to the council to see whether the obvious issue is whether there's going to be a motion to bring this off the table? I'll just look to the council, but before we do that, is there anything that the city attorney or the city administrator wanted to give us in the way of context?
Sure. So, Mayor and Council, yeah, just to be clear, I mean, this is a situation that happens rarely, but it is clear in Robert's rules how it is. So, though our ordinance, which dictates the outline of an agenda, doesn't call for an old business item, we felt it was appropriate to provide notice and opportunity that if council wants to take it off the table and deal with it differently than it did 2 weeks ago, that opportunity is clearly identified to the public tonight, that there was per Robert's rules, an opportunity the evening of when it was tabled and tonight. And if tonight comes and goes without it being removed from the table, it's a dead issue, so to speak, for lack of a better term. So I did meet with our staff, was clear with them. It is not our role to be out trying to find, how do we resurrect the work in this plan? It's a policy body decision. The policy body decided to table it. So this is where it stands for you this evening. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, with that, I'll look to the council. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess maybe just for clarification, this might have been the first time that we used the term, I want to table something. So to our city attorney, when should we use the term, I want to table something, and how should we use that as a body going forward? Not this one, but going forward.
Councilmember Boyette, generally when you want to table something, it's because something else has come up during the meeting and somebody needs to leave, or there's some other urgent matter that needs to be taken up. So you set aside a matter briefly so you can take up the other matter, and then so that matter is tabled. And as soon as, for example, I think one of the examples used in Robert's rules is the body requests a document, the clerk needs to go get it. So you table that issue till the clerk returns, and you take up other matters. And then when the clerk returns, you take the item from the table and get back to it. So an emergency or some other urgent business comes up is generally how it's intended to be used by Robert's rules.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyette, and members of the public who are interested in this. Or if you're a member of the public and you're interested in this, I won't comment. You can check out the city attorney's email to the council from Wednesday, where she goes through 2 or 3 pages of that discussion from Robert's rules, and I found it very interesting. So that was at 5:07. It's on the went to the mayor and council, so that means it would be available to the public this Wednesday, March 19th. So actually, it wasn't this Wednesday; it was last Wednesday, March 19th. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. I do have a question. I certainly would like to untable this, but I guess I'm still unclear what is in order. Is it in order to make a motion to untable it, or to make a motion with specific direction?
Councilmember Shaw, if any member could make a motion to simply take the item from the table, and then it will be brought back as if you were in the exact same status as it was at the last regular meeting. So at that point, if it were taken off the table, if you made the motion and it was seconded and approved by the body, then council could take action to approve, deny, postpone, whatever kind of action that you may have taken.
So we don't actually take that action tonight. Our only action tonight is to
You do.
Sorry.
You do.
Oh, okay.
You make them, if it's taken from the table, it's before the body for action.
Got it.
Which is
okay.
why we wanted to make sure it was noticed up properly in the event that somebody wanted to take it from the table.
Okay, I appreciate that. So then I guess I would make a motion to untable this item.
I think technically the language that Gina was using is to take it from the table.
Okay, to
but
take
doesn't
it
make
from
any
the
difference.
table.
We get it, right? And then just to remind, the effect of that would be, it would then be like it was before on our consent agenda recommendation for approval. Staff has also raised the possibility of putting it on a future work session. So that's the motion to take it from the table. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Kulik. And now discussion.
Point of order?
Point of order, there is no discussion.
That's
Go
correct.
straight to a
That's,
vote.
I appreciate you pointing that out. So it's not debatable. We just proceed immediately to a vote. It just requires a majority vote. Everybody is here, so that would be 6. So, and it's not amendable either. So we'll proceed to the vote. So and we'll need a hand vote because we need to make sure we get, we know it'll be close. So if in favor of the motion to take this item from the table, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are council members Shaw, Gulick, Cole, and Rupsis. And if voting in opposition, raise your hand. All other council members, Neese, Owen, Rogers, Aspenleiter, Tidswell, and Boyette, and Councilmember Kennedy. So the motion fails, 4 in favor, 7 against. So it remains on the table. I'd recommend that you take a look at Gina's memo as to what that means. Specifically, we can bring it back through the regular process at some point, potentially. Councilmember Boyette?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to make an observation that this is about a third or fourth time that we, in the past history, have approved something down the road and then we deny it a month or 2 months or a year later. We got to get, in my opinion, we need to get better at approving what we're talking about to start with, so we don't end up in the same predicament where, well, 2 years ago you approved it, now you're denying it. That seems to be a contradiction of what we've been doing, and we need to practice better approving what we want to approve and then sticking with it.
Okay, so that concludes item number 6. Any council initiatives? Councilmember Neese?
Mayor, I thought this would be a good time to ask Chris, where our initiatives are at as far as coming before us. I think there's been several council initiatives to you. And I just wanted to just be sure that, what the status is, when are they coming to council, are meetings happening behind the scenes with staff, so they just don't stack up. Can you give us a kind of a summary of what's going on with the initiatives that's been before you?
Sure. Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, I believe it's been in the last 60 days, 4 to 6 weeks, that when at Maddox in my office did put a compilation of an update together and provided that to the council on the status. So they do retain and remain on our list of things to do. Of some of the more recent ones, Councilmember Aspenleiter's initiative regarding RFPs, RFQs. Had a couple of different meetings on that. I actually have language ready to go, and so it's coming on one of the upcoming work sessions. In fact, I was looking at those work sessions per Mr. Kennedy's comments this evening. So it's got it's on a tentative schedule if you look out into the weeks in the future. Just this afternoon, I think there was the second or third meeting of the a property team. That was an initiative as well as some direction from earlier this year. And we've had one follow-up meeting with Councilmember Owen with some of our staff on the most recent initiative, I think, that's been adopted, and we'll do a follow-up to that here in the upcoming days and weeks to continue to move those on. So they don't sit stale, and yet you will find one that I think on that list that predates me, and so when that does keep a full record back, a decade plus of various things. So I'd encourage you to take a look in your inbox. You'll see the staff provides a little update as to what the status is on those.
Which is the one that predates you?
Actually, it was a council member I did not work for. I think Ryan Sullivan. Yeah. Well, SPA ordinance, I would say we made progress and we succeeded at that. I think the other one was going through, which we would love to find the time to do all of our ordinances and update our codes.
Although some of the new hires have been doing that. Code enforcement's done a great job of doing it. So
it's
there's some
constantly
progress
a work
there.
in progress.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the zero-based budgeting, there's been no movement on that.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Zero-based budgeting, there's been no movement on that.
I would say not beyond the conversations that happen in Budget and Finance Committee. I mean, right now we're working through budget presentations. We got a Budget and Finance Committee meeting coming up in 2 days.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And if there's some items on there that we need to clean up, like delete, and you want an official blessing of that or modification, you might want to bring that to us.
Absolutely, and you will see on that report completed some of those things that show that, and if there's anything we want, yeah, to consider no longer putting any resources in, happy to bring those to.
Very good. Then we
Thank
might
you.
have the list active and then a morgue or just dead or not even have them on the list or something like that. Okay, with that, council, we are adjourned. Thanks very much.
Just a minute, Mayor.
Oh, I apologize. Councilmember Kennedy?
Chris, on initiatives, I still haven't received anything, and we have it on for Wednesday's meeting on the car allowances. You were going to gather some information, and I haven't seen anything. Will I see something before Wednesday?
I don't know if you'll see something in writing. We did put it on the agenda so that it does not get lost. I am down staff. I will be there. I will be able to lay out what we have as a policy and ultimately have a conversation about it. But I have asked human resources with the police contract, a number of other issues that are going on that have been candidly more urgent, my call, not yours, that has not been something I've asked her to pull together more information than I'm comfortable being able to say the status of how the system works. It's not complicated. So I'm comfortable having that conversation Wednesday with Budget and Finance and getting some perspective from Budget and Finance and yourself as to how you want to move forward, either inside or outside of the budget process.
I would request that I get